Call to order the regular board meeting for Pleasantdale School District 107 Board of Education at 6 p.m. on June 18, 2025. Can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Braca?
Here.
Mrs. Lenson?
Here.
Mr. Nash?
Here.
Mrs. Walters?
Here.
Mr. Zona?
Here.
Mr. Mason?
Here.
Mrs. Marchione?
Here. Pledge of allegiance.
All right. We don't have questions, so we'll let the clerk lead us in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brian Board.
We do have brag boards from our summer academy. It's in full swing, and the learning continues even over the summer with engaging activities for our achievers classes and our other activities that we have at the elementary school. This week's brag boards, this month's brag boards showcase creative student work, including imaginative drawings from our very own Eddie the Eagle, from Miss Williams' Calling All Crafters class, and innovative cardboard art from Miss Marari's creative arts students. Again, our summer academy runs through July 3rd, and it is hosted at the elementary school. Our very talented summer academy principal, Maggie Asenko, is doing a great job running that program, so thank you.
Okay. Next, Kevin Gordon, our board-appointed attorney, will be sharing a brief statement this evening. His statement is meant to address some of the questions and requests that administration and the board has received regarding recent personnel matters. We hope his remarks will provide helpful context and clarity as we move forward in tonight's meeting. With that, I'll turn it over to Kevin. Thank you for joining us.
I don't know, I'm hoping for context and clarity. I don't know that I'm going to provide a lot of satisfactory answers for anybody. But thank you for having me. I know that the school district is confronting a difficult situation involving allegations against one of its staff members. And this has been an ongoing process for some months. Generally speaking, we don't provide or offer a lot of information about either student issues, incidents, or those involving our staff. And it's for a number of reasons. One is we have to be very careful because the Personnel Records Review Act limits and restricts the disclosure of personnel record information. So we don't want to run afoul of that. Additionally, the Abused and Neglected Child Reporting Act provides for removal of DCFS investigation reports from the personnel file when an unfounded determination has been made. And it also protects the confidentiality of reports, so we need to be careful in that respect. Obviously, whenever you're dealing with a matter involving students, whether it's purely a student issue or a staff member issue that involves students, you have Illinois School Student Records Act confidentiality obligations that you have to adhere to. Also, you have a collective bargaining agreement that prohibits discussion of matters of adverse criticism involving staff members from being held in public, specifically in front of students, but when you're dealing with a public meeting like this, and one that is being live streamed, you are in front of students all the time. And so you can't run afoul of your collective bargaining.
Sorry, can you speak up for the people that are being live streamed? We can't hear you well.
Okay.
Thank you.
All of this is to say that when you're dealing with the provision of information, either in a public meeting, small meetings, or in writing, you have to be very careful because it's easy to lose track of those obligations to maintain confidentiality. So you have to be very careful about what information you provide publicly emanating from the school district. The Open Meetings Act recognizes this difficulty and specifically authorizes closed session discussions related to personnel matters. And that's so that you can have those conversations so that you can make the best decisions that you can make, but without a discussion in a public forum. Other considerations you need to make sure that you are aware of when you talk about incidences and provide information is that generally the recommended practice is not to comment on specific personnel matters because of potential future litigation, either by the staff member involved or the other people that might have been involved in an incident. You don't want to create a cause of action where there is none already, and you don't want to impair your defense in the event of litigation. Like I said, public forums are very difficult in that if you find yourself in a back and forth information sharing situation, it's really easy to go down the slippery slope and to lose track of what information you should be sharing and what information you should not be sharing. Some legal considerations in this matter. The Illinois Human Rights Act prohibits an employer from taking adverse employment action against an employee based simply on an arrest, unless otherwise authorized or required by law. An adverse employment action would include such things as suspension, termination, demotion, reassignment that otherwise serves as a demotion. The reason for this prohibition is because the standard for an arrest, which is probable cause, is exceptionally low. Probable cause means that there was only a reasonable belief that a crime had been committed. This is an even lower standard than preponderance of the evidence which governs civil litigation and civil actions, which simply means that it's more likely than not that a particular fact is true. When you're talking about probable cause, there are no facts, there are only allegations at play at that point. The other thing you need to be cognizant of is that disciplinary actions of staff members, when you're talking about a teacher, need to be initiated through due process procedures and would need to meet either a just cause standard for non-termination discipline or irremediability standards for termination. All that said, there is some public information that has been shared and can be shared at this point. It's public information that upon receiving information in June of 2024 about an incident that allegedly occurred 6 years earlier, the school district contacted DCFS. Out of an abundance of caution, the school district also contacted local law enforcement. The information conveyed in June of 2024 was significantly different than the information conveyed to the school district in 2019 about the 2018 incident. DCFS and the police department investigated the allegations, utilizing specially trained personnel, including forensic interviews of multiple witnesses by personnel from the Child Advocacy Center. The school district did cooperate with the investigations and with information requests. And after 9 months of investigation, DCFS issued 2 determinations that the allegations were unfounded due to a lack of evidence, and the Cook County State's Attorney declined to charge and prosecute because the police investigation failed to corroborate the allegations of the complaint that was in fact made. Again, these are really difficult situations, and the board finds itself potentially having to make decisions that are unpopular based on what the law says, what the employee rights say, what has been established. This is not a situation any longer where the allegations have been untested or uninvestigated, right? We have an investigation by specially trained individuals, child welfare agency representatives, who have made determinations in this matter. And at this point, the staff member has not been charged. There's no indication that he will be charged. And there's no indicated finding against him by DCFS. And in those situations, typically, the staff member is returned to duty, which is what's happened in this particular case.
Thank you. Next, we're going to move on to item 3, open forum. Please know that all individuals addressing the board will be afforded 3 minutes in accordance with board policy, and in an effort to ensure everyone who has come tonight has an opportunity to speak, we will not be enforcing the 15-minute per topic limit. However, we will strongly enforce the 3-minute limit per person to ensure that we remain respectful of the board's overall agenda and time. We will take the green forms in the order they were received. The green forms are out in the hallway. If you have a question, we will acknowledge all who have completed the green form in the minutes of this meeting. Any questions addressed to the board will be answered by administration within 48 hours. Additionally, for clarity and to ensure your specific questions are answered, we request that the questions be submitted in writing on the green forms. Before we start open forum, I'm just going to make a brief statement. I want to remind all speakers, this forum is a space for respectful and constructive comments. Personal attacks, defamatory statements, and inappropriate language will not be permitted. If your statement does not comply with these expectations, you'll be asked to stop speaking. We have asked Kevin Gordon, our legal representative, to interject if any comments made are legally inaccurate, and Dave Pelzett, superintendent, to interject if any remarks constitute a personal attack or defamatory statement. We strongly encourage individuals with specific concerns, particularly those involving student experiences or personnel matters, to contact school administration directly so these matters can be addressed appropriately and thoroughly. We appreciate your support in maintaining a respectful environment for everyone in our school community. And I'll turn it over to Jen.
Our first speaker is Courtney Borkowski.
Good evening. I would like to speak on those behalf who support to keep Elmir Emso in his current position as a PE teacher. I've been part of the Pleasantdale School District since 2019, and it has been my pleasure to be an active parent volunteer in our elementary school ever since. Many of you might know me for my contributions to our school, leading Trunk or Treat for 3 years, decorating the Blue Ribbon Party, assisting in setting up art shows, and maybe you've enjoyed some of my balloon display arches. I have volunteered hundreds of hours of my personal time in our school, not just for these events, but on a weekly basis, in the classroom and in the library. The reason why I tell you all this is because as a former educator myself, I value being involved. Physically being in the building alongside the teachers and students has given me the opportunity to see how our school operates, develop relationships with students and staff, and be a part of our school community. I know from experience that our teachers give their heart and soul to the classrooms, and it's not always an easy job, but those aha moments when you see a child's face light up to make a connection of what they've just learned or learned a new skill is all worth it. Our school administration hires staff members that they believe will enrich our children's lives. As parents, we give them our trust and our support. The goal is to help our children become well-rounded, kind humans while they develop their social-emotional skills as well as their academics. Their safety in the classroom and around the school grounds is top priority. Often we hear Ms. Tomei speak about the Pleasantdale way. We are encouraged to lend a hand at concerts, be kind and respectful to others, and be contributing members of our community by volunteering. I'm here to tell you all that has been my personal experience to work with Elmir Emso. He is a leader in our school. He is selfless and puts the school first. He is strict with discipline, but fair to all. He protects our students in cases of being bullied. He teaches our students how to talk with kindness and be respectful of each other. He cares deeply for the safety and the well-being of our students and staff, as shown in May of 2024, when he risked his own safety to get our children inside the building during an emergency lockdown when real danger was present. I have seen him and volunteer his time before and after school with staff members' events to help make sure that everything was set up and ready for a memorable experience. Elmir Emso genuinely loves Pleasantdale. He embodies the Pleasantdale way. As a parent and community member, I fully trust that our school board, who we elected based on their values and beliefs, has taken the proper steps to report any allegations. While many rumors, stories, sides have been taken and spread, I, alongside 300 other members of our community, have signed a petition to keep Mr. Elmir Emso in his position because we believe in the law and due process that happened. I ask that we all take a step back to ask, is this the Pleasantdale way? If someone has illegally been cleared and investigated through the government agencies, why are we questioning his position and his character? Anyone who truly knows Elmir Emso knows that his heart, his passion for teaching and making Pleasantdale a safe place for the students to learn is genuine. Thank you.
Next is Tom Ara.
Thank you. On a totally different subject. I'm here today as a resident in follow-up to last month's Lyons Township High School board meeting regarding the possible sale of a portion of the Willow Springs property. Based on your special meeting on June 9th and tonight's closed session agenda item, the board's discussions have already begun. As As I have stated in the past, I am in support of obtaining the required land to support District 107's plans for fifth grade realignment and enhanced preschool programming as a building addition to elementary school, which I believe will be a cost-effective plan for the future. I also understand these negotiations may involve other parties such as Pleasantdale Park District to obtain the specific land required for a building addition. And I am aware of the board's fiscal responsibilities to tax-paying residents for reasonable purchase price. However, this most likely will be the final opportunity to obtain what will be needed in the future for District 107 students. I believe the purchase of the land adjacent to the elementary school should be considered a long-term investment in the District 107 community's future and a reasonable financial investment if it never gets used. Good luck with the negotiations for District 107's future, and if I could ever help, let me know. Thank you. Look it up.
Jennifer Wolf.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jennifer Wolf, and I am here tonight as a concerned parent and advocate for student safety. I'm here to speak about something no parent should ever have to question, whether our children are truly safe here at Pleasantdale School. If Elmira is perfectly safe to return to school, as so you claimed, why not prove it with transparency? Why not allow the parents and the community to see exactly what happened? Or are you protecting his protector, Principal Tomei? According to the report from Willow Springs Police, it appears that the victim confided in Tomei, but what Tomei did with that information originally is not clear. Every educator, every administrator, everyone in a school setting must be a mandated reporter. There's no gray area. When a student shares something as serious as sexual misconduct, the only appropriate response is action. Immediate, documented, legal action. Anything less is a failure. I've had to make that difficult call 3 times in my teaching career. It's a call no one wants to make. I never once hesitated because the safety of the child comes first in my classroom. So why was there hesitation here? Why has there been silence? And beyond Principal Tomei, where was Dr. Pazlet? As superintendent, he is responsible for ensuring every principal in this district understands and fulfills their duties, including keeping the students safe. If he has allowed this failure to go unaddressed or minimize it, then that is a failure on his part too. Has either of them received additional training with mandated reporting? Any consequences? Any discipline? If not, why? This isn't just about Elmira. It's about a system that appears more concerned with liability than the children. It's more than a lawyer mumbling at the beginning of a meeting about employment of Elmira. It's about trust, and right now, you're losing it. We deserve answers, we deserve transparency, and most of all, our children deserve safety. And I hope the next time that we talk, Dr. Pazlet, you have that smug smile off your face. Thank you.
Next is Laura Tab.
She's gonna take my spot, I'm just the chair, she's going first. It's Paige, side out.
Is that Paige?
I was, yeah.
Okay. Paige.
What is the name, just so I can?
Paige Seidel.
Seidel.
Hi, I am Paige Seidel, mother of 3 Pleasantdale students, 5th, 3rd, and preschool. I wanted to start off by saying that regardless of which petition anybody has signed in the room, I know that every one of us is here for the same reasons. We care for the district, our community, and most importantly, our children. For those reasons, I'm here today to bring major concerns regarding discipline, bullying, favoritism, lack of leadership, and lack of staff support issues at PES, mostly involving inappropriate and concerning actions, some by Mr. Enzo. The following list is comprised of situations that my family has experienced firsthand, along with those of neighbors, friends, and staff members who may or may not feel comfortable enough sharing due to said favoritism and potential retaliation. As some families here have experienced, discipline and bullying is a chronic issue in all elementary schools, and PES is not out of that. But I'm not just talking about the students. Many children, including my own, have had bullying and bullying issues, and there's little to no action from the principal even when it's brought up and meetings are had. Mr. Emso repeatedly takes discipline into his own hands, yes, in an authoritative way, when it should really sit with the principal. How and why is this allowed? He pulls children from class on multiple occasions without any prior notification of the situation or issue to parents, principal, teachers, social workers, or psychologists. And when we expressed concern about this to Ms. Tomei, we were told that this is not proper procedure, yet children have experienced this on multiple occasions over the years. I've heard this from neighbors and other families alike. There's a pattern. Once pulled, the children are side by side, forcing them to be tattletales in front of their peers. Can you imagine the fear when an adult is an authority figure is standing in front of you like that, no matter if you were the witness or the accused? He's also asked the student why he told his mom about a physical altercation between him and a student, that occurred in PE the prior day. He told his mom when he got home because he was upset, and neither parent, it was not reported to either parent. I consider some of these tactics almost bullying in nature to children. He's called a student with colored hair crayon rather than her given name. He has attempted to physically pull and remove Megan's son from the car when he was having a rough morning, as she was telling him to stop, leave him alone, and she would handle it. He grabbed my son by the arm to move him to the front of the bus for something he did not witness, all while my older daughter was yelling that he did not do anything, and trust me, she would rat on her brother given the chance. The next day, he called me and told me my son was kicked off of the bus for a week and that this was a joint decision by all the necessary parties. Yet when I brought this to the attention of his teacher, principal, and other supporting staff, they had no idea. There was not truth, and again, procedure was not followed, yet nothing ever happened. There's a concerning pattern of situations like these involving and targeting certain students who have ADHD or simply have a hard time sometimes, forcing children like my son to not want to come to school at PES because he feels like he is a target and being set up for failure each day.
Laura. I'm continuing Pages as she has a lot to say that you all need to hear. I want to make it known to the board that a large number of staff has been on the receiving end of inappropriate comments or actions and does not feel fully supported enough by their leadership to report. There's a fear of retaliation and feeling of, well, nothing's going to happen. Examples: he's taken a female staff member's phone out of its pocket on her backpack without her knowledge, only to later give it back while she's looking for it and tell her, please be more careful with your things. In her place of work, in an elementary school, in a pocket of her backpack. What was that intention? He has commented on the same staff member's sex life with her husband. He's rubbed a pregnant staff member's shoulders unsolicited, which she later said she regretted not reporting. But again, what's going to happen? Because he has commented on female staff members' appearance and weight on multiple occasions by asking if they are tired when not wearing makeup, or by saying, wow, couldn't even see the class behind you. Along with not following proper disciplinary procedures, I was even more deeply disturbed after the active lockdown situation last year. Mr. Emso acted quickly to get a first grade class back into the building. Great. But then returned outside to direct police on how to do their job and consequently not doing his, protecting the safety and mental well-being of the 6 and 7-year-old children he was responsible for at the time, yet lauded as a hero. Imagine if that was one of your children, left without adult supervision during an active police search and lockdown. Notice how the previous list did not mention any of the recent allegations. These are all situations that have happened to one or many of us. These are facts. And please know, this is not everything. We continue to urge everyone who has had similar situations to come forward and stand up. Dr. Pelzet, you stated that there was an anonymous way for staff to report concerns or issues, which is fantastic. Yet when that was relayed to staff members, both new and some with many years in the district, none were aware of such a resource, because there is no such way. And when concerns are brought up or conveyed in a silent yet visible way, they are dismissed and verbally shamed by their direct manager, Tomei. While I'm making it known that I will be that anonymous resource for anyone who may need it. Many of you in this room, myself included, work in a corporate setting. No matter the industry or field you may work in, it is widely known that when strong and supportive leadership is not present, morale, culture, community, and faith among staff will be lost. How could you expect a staff member to feel supported if they're being shamed rather than approached for discussion about their feelings and opinions on an important matter in their workplace? Imagine if any of you did or said just one of these things to a coworker. What would happen to you under your corporate HR policies? We heard from Pelzette himself. He's not going to get hired anywhere else. Better yet, would you want any of these situations to happen to your child, your spouse, your sister, niece, friend, neighbor, especially in an elementary school? If not, show it. These are like scenes from the harassment training videos required of corporate America, except they're happening in real time in our small, blue ribbon award winner. The attorney got his 10 minutes. I'm going to take my time too.
That wasn't open forum.
The inaction and turning of blind eyes is creating a hostile and uncomfortable environment for both staff, students, and families alike. I urge the district to take action because there are major systemic issues and need to be addressed to revitalize the faith of parents and staff
Can you please
in
wrap up your
this district.
statement? Thank you.
Bye. Megan McMillan.
Good evening. I'm Megan McMillan. I'm a parent in the district, and I'm seeking clarity regarding the decision to reinstate Mr. Enzo after reviewing the police report, which suggests the school knew of serious concerns as early as 2018 but may have failed to act. This isn't about vilifying anyone. It's about ensuring every possible step is taken to protect our children. After reading the report on the sexual assault allegations, I was disturbed, specifically by how the district handled an earlier allegation in 2018. On page 6, it states, quote, "They had brought it to the school's attention, but nothing had been done about the incident," end quote. Quote, "Tomei stated she would get the superintendent involved. That was the same thing they told them the first time," end quote. Quote, "Redacted was aware of what occurred and stated the same, that the school did nothing the first time," end quote. As a mandated reporter, Principal Tomei was legally obligated to act, yet this report raises serious questions about whether she did. Fast forward to 2024, when police requested documents from the 2018 allegations. Page 44 states, quote, "Dr. Pelzette stated on advice of the school's district attorney that the requested notes pertaining to the 2018 allegation be considered confidential and not turned over to the reporting detective," end quote. Police then drafted a search warrant and a grand jury subpoena. But page 45 reads, quote, "ASA Wong states his supervisor does not want detectives searching for the documents. His supervisor wants Pleasantdale to be forced to produce the documents via grand jury subpoena," end quote. To my knowledge, no search warrant or subpoena followed, which suggests the 2024 investigation may have proceeded without key records. How are we expected to trust that a thorough investigation occurred given this information? Why would a school offer anything less than full transparency in a matter involving child safety? Hiding behind policy may protect the institution, but it doesn't protect the children. Also, because the administration has offered no transparency, concerned parents submitted FOIA requests to better understand the situation. Those requests were denied by the school, raising the question, if there's nothing to hide, why block us access to the records? Lastly, we are told to trust the DCFS findings even though charges weren't dropped due to lack of concern, but due to legal threshold. On page 42, the DCFS letter states, quote, "This does not necessarily mean that the allegations of abuse or neglect did not happen," end quote. How is that supposed to sit with parents? We are being asked to assume the victim is lying and to blindly trust a district that has offered us no transparency or safeguards. Tonight I'm asking the district for 4 things: a formal review of how the 2018 allegation was handled, full transparency about what documents were withheld and why, that Mr. Enzo be removed from child-facing duties given the severity of the allegation and the ongoing lack of clarity surrounding the school's investigation independent of the DCFS investigation, and confirmation that the board has read all documentation from 2018 and 2024, including the full police report. We're not here with pitchforks, we're here as parents because someone has to be. The district may want us to accept this quietly, to move on and to trust it blindly, but we've read the report and we're done being left in the dark. If the school failed to act in 2018, withheld documents from police, and is now silencing concerned parents through denied FOIA requests, then we have to ask, who is the district protecting? Because from where we stand, it does not sound like you're protecting our
Please
children.
finish your comments.
Thank you, I'm finished.
Thank you.
Samantha Washlow.
Good evening. My name is Samantha Washlow. I am a concerned parent and parent of 2 daughters that attend Pleasantdale School. I did not come with anything prepared. I've spoke before the board before and have explained that I am also an attorney, and I know that there's attorneys on the board. And so, I've been a criminal defense attorney for 24 years, and I see cases daily. I see thousands and thousands of cases daily. And being a public defender means that I defend people that do horrible things. Being a public defender doesn't mean that I believe every story that comes before me, nor do I believe every victim that comes before me. However, there is always two sides to every story, and the point of me being here is complete transparency. And that is where the board and our school has failed us. It has failed. You see that there are a lot of concerned parents in this room, both for and against Mr. Emzo. Get it out in the open. The person that, the attorney, thank you for speaking today, which your authority on the fact that you can't disclose the documents to the police department based on the fact of the Illinois school code, whatever, is wrong. The privilege goes to the victim. And if the police are on behalf of the victim, the privilege is waived. It is 100% true. 100% true. There is 3 types of privilege: husband-wife, attorney-client, and the school has a right to protect the victim or a student's records. That's it. And if the student waives that privilege goes goodbye, and this all becomes in the open. So, I ask the board, just let it all out. Let the parents decide. This is ridiculous that this is taking months, and parents are arguing over a topic that can be cleared. Everybody is here because they care about their kids that are in the school. That's it, bottom line. It doesn't matter. Be open, be honest. Let us know, what documents did you review in 2018? That's what I would like to know. Thank you.
Patrick Murray.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Murray. I have 2 children in the Pleasantdale School District. Most relative to this is I have an 8-year-old daughter who is a student at the elementary school. She's been there for 4 years. And I have no hesitation having her return back to school. I've gotten to know Mr. Emzo over the course of the last 6 years because my son goes there as well. And more specifically, with regards to the allegations that were here today, there's a lot of speculation and unsubstantiated allegations. There's recklessness without regard for the truth. There's an allegation that took place back in 2018. Since that allegation, actually, I'm assuming Mr. Emzo has been employed by Pleasantdale for the past 10 years. And what I find interesting is that in those 10 years, he's come across thousands of students. And we have an allegation from one student, one investigation, one child. So I'm going to focus on that number 1, because we have 1 out of thousands that he's had interactions with. Not saying it didn't happen. Maybe there's issues with regards to misunderstanding. I don't know, and part of that is because the facts are kind of not really being disclosed to the parents. As of the more recent allegations that surfaced from 2018, it's my understanding that there were multiple investigations with regards to what he's accused of. One of which was a school internal investigation. It's my understanding that DCFS also came in and did their investigation, and their findings were unfounded or not indicated. The Willow Springs Police Department did an investigation. The Cook County State's Attorney's Office, through felony review, relied on Willow Springs Police Department. They did their own investigation, and ultimately Mr. Emzo was released without being charged. I know there's a petition circulating and parents are on two sides of the issue. But some of those parents that signed that petition aren't signing the petition because the allegations are against them today, but as you've heard from other parents, they're signing the petition against him because of personal issues with him, not because of what he's being alleged to have done. Then there's parents like myself who look at the facts through what I would consider a neutral lens, weighing the facts as we know them and applying common sense. And knowing Mr. Emzo, again, one student, thousands of other students over the course of 10 years with no complaints. Nobody came to light even after this one allegation came to light. So I think that there's been a rush to judgment and his character assassination. So I ask this, what if this is a misunderstanding? What about his friends and his reputation? What about his family? What about his children? What about his wife? What about his career? I think that it's important that the school take measures to make sure children are safe. And if that means have 2 teachers in rooms with children, then that's what they need to do.
Mr. Murray, go ahead and wrap it up.
Thank you. I think this is a learning lesson for parents and for them to have conversations with their children and to open up the issue with their children. Thank you.
That's it.
That's
Oh,
it.
no, that's all. You didn't get yours in. She gave hers. You gave it to me?
Lola Dubak, yeah.
She can just-
Did I miss Lola? I did miss Lola. Got stuck to another one, I'm sorry.
Can I come now?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Lola, that was my
That's
mistake.
okay. Good evening, board members and everybody in the Pleasantdale community. My name is Lola Dubak, and I'm a parent and proud member of this community. I'm here tonight to speak in support of Mr. Emzo, and on behalf and be a voice for the large Serbian and the Macedonian community in the school that has no voice or who cannot speak. He is not just a gym teacher. He is a presence in the school. From early mornings to after-school events, he's the one keeping students safe when others can't, and everything in between, which sometimes goes unnoticed. Mr. Emzo has been a reliable, trusted, and respectful figure at Pleasantdale for over 2 decades. A concern was raised 6 years ago, as we know, and the district took it seriously, as it should have. An investigation followed, and Mr. Emzo was cleared. When the same concern was brought back last year, another investigation was done, as we all know, and once again he was cleared. That is how the system works. We gave the situation the attention it deserved. By continuing to punish someone who's been cleared twice is not justice, it's harassment. The problem we face now isn't the original concern. The problem is a few families, some of which have not even been enrolled in Pleasantdale yet, have taken it upon themselves to ignore the facts and to continue to go after a man they don't even know and disrupt our community and school with rumors and fear. They have circulated a petition to remove Mr. Emzo that they took down 23 days later. Perhaps they realized that the others noticed that the petition was not in fact being signed only by Pleasantdale community. In fact, it stretches from Chicago and beyond. However, on the petition to retain Mr. Emzo, you will find over 30 adult former students, some of which my own sons are friends with, that have signed in his support, demonstrating that 23 and 24-year-olds have a strong and unified show of confidence in his character and conduct and how much they love him. These families are entitled to their feelings and opinions, but they are not entitled to rewrite the outcome of multiple investigations and call for the destruction of one man's life because they don't feel comfortable. If you cannot trust the symptom that has investigated and cleared a man twice, then perhaps this is not the school for you. 2 investigations, 2 full reviews, 0 findings. And to the board, we just need to hear from you. Your silence is not neutral, it's harmful, it's allowed the fire to spread. Well, in fact, twice. If all these statements and reports are what they state they are, then we all need to stand behind this man and do what's right. Protect the staff, bring clarity back to the community, and end these rumors and chaos. Thank you.
Thank you everyone who came to speak during open forum. We are gonna move on to our regular board agenda, so we understand if you do not want to sit through that, so if anyone wants to leave, now's the time. We're going to move on to item 4, the consent agenda, which consists of the following. 4A, approve regular meeting minutes of the May 21st, 2025 meeting. 4B, approve closed session minutes of the May 21st, 2025 meeting. 4C, approve special meeting minutes of the June 9th, 2025 meeting. 4D, approve closed session minutes of the June 9th, 2025 meeting. 4E, approve payment of the May payroll and June warrants. Mary was our checker.
Oh, yeah, no question.
4F, approve the June 2025 personnel report. 4G, approve voluntary student insurance. 4H, designation of depositories for school district funds. 4I, board resolution for serious safety hazard approval. 4J, resolution authorizing certain payments. 4K, approve section 2 board policies. And 4L, approve intergovernmental agreement between Pleasantdale 107 and West 40 Intermediate Service Center for participation in the alternate learning opportunities program. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Absolutely.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Braca?
Yes.
Mrs. Lenzen?
Yes.
Mr. Nash?
Yes.
Mrs. Walters?
Yes.
Mr. Zona?
Yes.
Mr. Mason?
Yes.
Mrs. Marchione?
Yes. Next is item 5, approve the LTTO withdrawal intergovernmental agreement. So can I please get a motion that the Board of Education approve the LTTO intergovernmental withdrawal agreement?
So moved.
Mr. Braca?
Yes.
Mrs. Lenzen?
Yes.
Mr. Nash?
Yes.
Mrs. Walters?
Yes.
Mr. Zona?
Yes.
Mr. Mason?
Yes.
Mrs. Marchione?
Yes. All right, next we'll move into item 6, administrative reports.
All right, so this evening, members of our Middle School Social Emotional Learning, or SEL Committee, are here to share an update with the board on their ongoing efforts. Their work plays an essential role in supporting our students' well-being and equipping them with the executive functioning skills needed to succeed both in middle school and beyond. I'll turn it over to Maura Raleigh, who will kick our presentation off and introduce our committee.
All right, well, hello everyone. We're super excited to be here today to share an overview of how our WIN implementation and our WIN period went this year at the middle school. So joining me are 3 amazing members of our committee. So we've got Kellyanna, Maggie Pasenko, and Jennifer Rudin with us today. So the goal of today is to walk you through kind of the journey of SEL at the middle school. Starting with a brief look at the history of what we've done, and then followed with how we launched WIN and then implemented it this year. And then we'll highlight some outcomes and look at what we're going to be doing next year. So with that, I'll hand it over to Kellyanna, and she'll get us started.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine. Good evening. Like Ms. Raleigh said, we just kind of wanted to go through a little bit of the history and evolution of the SEL program here. We started at 2017 because that's when the last time one of us started here, which was Maggie Pasenko. And at that point, the district SEL committee started with members of the entire district. Formed goals and had those examined. The state of Illinois has given us standards for SEL that we need to implement, but kind of like any other curriculum, the way in which we implement it is under our control. In 2019, which is when I came here, 5th grade implemented a home base, which was kind of their approach to meeting their SEL standards. And then the actual middle school SEL committee was formed. The district SEL committee in 2020 created a toolbox for teachers to use in relation to these standards. And we were doing kind of between that time and 2023, there was, COVID weaved in there. But we were also doing kind of an SEL type of class period that we held monthly, usually on the half days if we had a half day that month. Last year, we did a 2-week pilot of the program that we implemented this year to have our teachers try it out, see how the students would react to it, to have them, those that were here for the monthly SEL day, kind of weigh those two different options, get the students' feedback, the teachers' feedback, and then we went ahead and implemented the daily win period this year. Go to the next slide.
Can I ask a
sorry.
question, just for those at home? Oh, never mind, you're gonna get to it. Thank you.
They're anticipating your needs.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so what is what we call WIN? WIN stands for whatever I need. And it's a 20-minute period every single day that all of our students have. And they are put in their same grade level groups and assigned a teacher or two. They receive explicit instruction based on the SEL social emotional learning standards, including team building, activities, setting goals, doing executive functioning lessons as well. We have a shared vision. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you can kind of look at it up there, through which we implement this program. And this is part of our strategic roadmap, so this is in line with that as well. Okay, so why are we doing it like this? Why win? It's really an evidence-based practice, right? That it has positive impact on students' academic, mental health, skills development, and the school climate. So it's not sort of a movement. It's a curriculum, a research-based approach to meeting these standards for our students. We've been kind of asked the question, why is it every day? Okay, and the point of doing it daily is also research-based. If you think about any curriculum, a math curriculum, I mean, would you do that once a month? Would you do that every other day and consider that a full implementation? And this works the same way. It gives a consistent opportunity. And really because these groups are headed by teachers that they may not see any other time of day, and grouped with students that they may not have any other classes with, this daily interaction really gives them that focus to make connections during this safe SEL period and with that teacher and their peers as well. Oops, wrong way. And I am turning it over to Maggie.
Okay, so we've all heard of our RTI, our system of how we kind of tier students, and our win period is our tier 1. All students receive win during their 20 minutes. I just want to say that it's very student-centered and students love the win time, and it's just very awesome to see their feedback of how much they're enjoying it. Our tier 2 instruction is, in my opinion, I think so beneficial for our students. Kelly is the reading specialist at the middle and I'm the math specialist. We are able to pull students 20 minutes a day, whether it's once a week or twice a week, and we're able to group students because every student is on the same win schedule, so all students have win at the same time. So, for example, I'm able to work with 5th and 6th graders who are struggling with fractions. I have a small group, I pull them 20 minutes, then they go right back to their schedule. They don't miss specials. It's a really awesome way for us to hit those tier 2 students. We've been able to see more students than we've ever before. And then Jennifer Rudin is also able to work with kind of those social groups during that time. And then our tier 3 instruction, we see kids more times a week. And then they also don't miss that core instruction of they're in the classroom. Oh, wrong thing. You guys have seen the freshman preparedness survey. We've kind of looked at this of how we can use this for next year. And I'm not going to go over all the data, you've seen it before. But it just kind of gives us where can we go with this, what can we focus on. So that's stress management, the time management, and the study skills. So we work on executive functioning skills once or twice a week in the WIN period, and this just gives us a great way for us to start where can we better meet the needs of the students. And our 2024-25 school year WIN, so students are grouped 12 to 14 students, which is a great number to meet the needs of all the kids. They meet every day from 10:20 to 10:40. Like I said, Kelly and I pull small groups. It's also a time for us to work with the teachers to decide, okay, so-and-so struggling on a specific topic, let's just pull them for a couple days, and then they go right back into their classroom setting. They might not need to see us anymore. The curriculums we use everyday speech for our social emotional learning, and our RUSH executive functioning curriculum is where we pull most of our materials. And then it's also a place for us to not take time from core classes for surveys that we do, all of our safety drills, and other school-like business that we have to take care of. It's a great place for us to not take time from that core curriculum. Passing it over to Jennifer Rubin.
So this is a nice overview of typically what our week looks like in WIN. So looking at the objectives and learning targets. Although it's flexible, typically on Mondays we start the students off with like a class meeting or also some goal setting activities. And the students have all learned how to properly set goals, doing those SMART goals that probably many of you have set in the workplace as well. So if your child says they don't know how to set a SMART goal, that's not true, they do. So they'll do that. Then class meetings, or something fun, just really working on some of that community building within that small group setting in the WIN class. And then we'll typically have 1 to 2 days of executive functioning. And we know executive functioning skills are something that's so needed with students and carrying all the way through adulthood to take them into the workplace with planning, organization, skills worked on, problem solving, prioritizing, and self-monitoring. Some students need more skills than others. So we might have, if we see a need in one grade level, we'll be flexible. We will be flexible in our planning and look at emphasizing future lessons when needed. And then our social emotional learning, all of that, as Kelly talked a little bit about, comes directly from the social emotional learning standards, just as you've heard about, whether it's math learning standards at ELA, we have social emotional learning standards. So when you see the, self-awareness, social awareness, relationship skills, those are directly, we take those from the learning standards and we hit on those. And then lastly, towards the end of the week, we like to do team builders. You might hear your children talk about games because a lot of times they might think it's a game, even though we do talk about team building and what do we learn from this and working together. A lot of times it's getting the kids up and doing things of how we can accomplish this task. What's our common goal, and then what did we learn from it? I always love getting in those days because it tends to be kind of the noisy, days, and they're having a lot of fun with one common goal. So that's a great day. Yeah.
This is well, I love all the slides, but this is definitely my favorite slide. When we surveyed the students, what do you believe you improved most in this year? And I hope you have extra time to look over all these quotes because they're all fantastic. But just picking a few of my favorite. The one about, I feel like I improved with goals because this year I have achieved certain goals with what I learned in WIN. I mean, that person should just be our, promo director, right? With everything. I like there towards the bottom socially because I get along with a lot more people than I did at the start of the year. Fantastic, right? And then the top left, to learn how to be a better version of ourselves. I mean, isn't that what the whole world needs, fantastic. And then to leave this slide on a humorous note, the bottom left I love with my team building skills because I learned to include everyone and to be less bossy. I mean, great, right? So I thought that was a great one as well. And then we looked at our data for our behavior infractions. We looked at last school year. It's hard in the summer, like what's last school year? Sorry, the 2023-24 school year for behavior infractions, and then compared it to this past school year, the 24-25, when we had our daily WIN class, and we compared that. So if you notice, for 23-24, when we had just had the 2 weeks there of our WIN program, so the number of students with infractions in 23-24 was 120, and the total number of infractions was 561. And then looking to this past school year with our daily WIN class, we had 80 number of students and reduced it again down to 397. So that was quite an improvement. And I'll turn it over to Maura.
Okay, so continuing with looking at our data, we gave a lot of surveys. It was the first year of implementation. We gave surveys in the beginning of the year, end of the year. We also had informal conversations, but these surveys really reported growth in the strengthening relationships and the academic and executive functioning growth. So with relationships, students reported stronger social connections with their WIN group peers and with staff. And this was also reflected in our 5 essentials data that just came out. So our student-teacher trust went up 9 points, which was great. We also saw growth in that academic and executive functioning. So students self-reported that goal setting that was just mentioned. They mentioned MAP scores and organization all was their greatest area of improvement. So that was a self-reporting for them. So in addition to, like I mentioned, we had some qualitative feedback from multiple sources throughout the year. So we had conversations with students, student council, and teachers. So we heard from students that they really favored those hands-on kind of team building, anytime they were up and moving around activities. And then those activities kind of really helped increase that engagement and WIN, and their enthusiasm in the surveys increased noticeably by the end of the year. So when we talked to student council, they gave feedback on the whole year, but the first thing they wanted to talk about was WIN, which was great, and how much they loved it. So they shared how much they appreciated being with students outside of their usual friend groups and classes, and how this led to new friendships, stronger bonds, and the feeling of comfort and consistency throughout the year. So many described WIN as a much needed reset during the day as well. So during staff meetings, team meetings, we were able to collect that staff feedback, and those insights really helped us make adjustments in real time. So, our grade is really struggling with X, Y, Z, let's do that, let's next month focus on that. And then it also helped us plan for next year. So next year, so based on all of that information, these are kind of the 4 main areas we're looking at focusing on next year. So clarifying the purpose, tailoring content by grade level, providing dedicated planning time, and then continuing to gather that feedback. So we also got some great suggestions from staff to keep student engaged, like some additional things we can add to the program. So looking at, for example, service learning opportunities, incorporating more of that, and having some more flexible win days where students can seek support from specific teachers, which I think will be really great. So we're looking at piloting that in 8th grade and then hopefully then rolling that out to some of the other grades. So we've made sure next year in creating the schedule that every single WIN teacher has common planning time with their WIN, which was different. This year we did not have, we had most but not all. So next year we made sure that we have that. And then we're looking at adding some professional development on SEL with our staff. We had a little bit this year, but looking at kind of beefing that up and making sure everyone knows why we're doing this and all that. So as we head into year 2 of this, our goal is to move closer to that MTSS. I know that slide Maggie talked about triangle, so looking at having more of that 80-15 model in MTSS and executive functioning with all our data points. So we have some great data, but we're not quite where we want to be yet, obviously. So while recognizing that each class that we get to, we have a new incoming class and an outgoing 8th grade class. So looking at, each year is going to be different too with our student needs. So we saw a lot of growth, but at the same time we learned a lot of things where we could kind of grow and evolve the program. So we're excited to see where year 2 takes us. That is, and the quote slide.
We really like it.
Yeah.
It should be like your signature. Okay, I've got lots of questions, but I don't want to dive in. Okay, let's dive in. First question, and I think I might have explained it, but I didn't hear it. How are groupings established for students?
So when we did the pilot, we did a random grouping. So completely random. So we did the 12 to 15. When we're doing SEL and having those difficult conversations, doing a smaller group is evidence-based and student council actually shared that we feel more comfortable sharing things in that smaller group. So we have all staff members, all hands on deck, except these 3 who provide those interventions during that time. And we did a random grouping. We made some adjustments for this year.
I was gonna say the groups are mostly going to stay the same as they progress through the middle school, so that they feel more and more comfort. Obviously, there's the special case where we have to separate some kids. So we really looked at that. We also in 1 grade went from 6 to 5, so we did have to take 1 group and kind of disperse them, but we were very strategic on where we put specific students, just so that they can kind of expand their friend groups and but the goal is to keep them consistent throughout
the cohort.
throughout.
Would the instructor stay with them?
No, we.
It might be good to change
No,
it
no,
up.
Yeah,
I'm not,
we,
no, I'm
a lot of teachers.
It is not. You're not like
I want to
Yeah.
increase that, with the 5 essentials, you want to increase that staff connection with other staff members.
A lot
So
of
it's
teachers
great.
did not want to give up their WIN group.
I know, yes.
Yeah.
I know it. Another question. So we talk a lot about 5th grade and the transition from elementary to middle. So is WIN time a time that could be utilized to support that transition, or are there specific things we could? Is that a topic?
So the first couple of weeks,
Okay.
the first I would say the first 2 weeks, not really 8th grade, all students are going over school expectations, how middle school, especially in 5th grade, how middle school works. They really take that time to make the students feel comfortable. I know last year one teacher asked their group, does anyone know where everything is? And so they did a little tour. It's really what that group needs, and it's a very flexible time, which I think is really helpful.
And 5th grade spends a lot longer on that.
Yeah,
so
right.
Than the other grades.
Okay.
And it goes both ends too. So 8th grade, one of the biggest pieces of feedback we got from 8th graders was that they wanted more, and which is definitely reflective in that freshman preparedness data, they wanted more on that transition to high school. So we're looking at some additional resources this year on both transitions, transition to and then from.
Got it. And then you mentioned PD on SEL. Are we also doing PD on executive functioning?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, I know we probably have done
Yeah,
quite a
we've
bit,
done-
but I know that we just talked about it.
We're
so
also
I'm just
using the
curious.
Rush program, and yes. so-
For, okay, yes.
Last year we did it on Rush. We're looking at adding more resources this year. So whatever new things we add, we would provide training on.
Got it. Okay, last question, I promise. And then the time. So I didn't realize it was 10:20 to 10:40. Have we ever thought about the end of the day for those kiddos who need like, you know,
Yeah.
more time to transition or books or homework or, but I don't know. I'm just asking like the time of the day.
Well, you have had it at Pleasantdale before, and it was
So
at
the end of the day is
beginning
rough.
and end.
Oh, yeah. It's just, I mean, I don't know. I was just curious.
The,
Yeah.
the end of the day is kind of rough. I totally understand getting ready to go home. We do have check-in, check-out with specific students that need that support. But the end of the day, everyone's kind of just like checked out. You know,
Got it.
and,
Okay.
you know, it's 3 o'clock and you're ready to go home. You're staring at the clock. When's it gonna ring? That morning time, it kind of gets us ready for the day. Students are, you know, fill out their assignment notebooks. You know, do, you know, just kind of get ready and get prepared for the success that they're gonna have during the day.
I think because, I'm sorry, I'm the social worker, so I think you're gonna know that when you hear how I answer this too.
Oh,
I
sure.
think because we talked about that reset that it offers a lot of students, you know. I think we all kind of need that, like, you know, whether it's a cup of coffee for us or that little, you know, and for students, not that we don't treat this as a class period, but it is a little bit of that mental reset or that little, like, you know, talk to your friend for a second, hey, learn about, you know. So having it at the end of the day, not that it wouldn't continue to be beneficial, but it does allow a little bit of that, you know, take a deep breath, chat a little bit with, you know, hear from your teacher about how things are going on those class meeting days. So I think that reset is nice to have a little bit more in that midday.
I want to add one more thing. Specifically where it is in the day, we looked at all students are in an academic class, period 1. So most students are in a blocked class, 1, 2. So then they hit the block 1, 2, and then they have the WIN. It's not separating a block, so kids aren't going part of math, WIN, rest of math. It's kind of a good transition of I had some academic, now I'm taking my reset and my rest of my academics.
That makes sense. Yeah, totally.
And it was part of our research. So when we did the pilot, we asked teachers what, you know, and some teachers have had a history of having an advisory like period here. We also looked at other schools and how they implement, how did it go first period, how did it go last period, how did it go? So it was kind of all part of our research. So the middle of the day it provides that mid-morning, then they get lunch.
Perfect, breaks up their day.
Yes.
Love it. I was just curious. Yeah, that's great. That's all I had.
I also had just a couple comments and questions. First of all, thanks for all of your work on this. I think it's really incredible, and also I've seen, you know, some changes just with like my own son, you know, from the 5th grade piece. One of the things that he learned that was, I think, so valuable was just learning to write his assignments in his assignment notebook and keeping track of them. And like, it seems like something so obvious and so simple, but it was great, and he could check them off after he finished, and then there wasn't any surprises about what homework he has, you know. And we could also see it, which was nice. So thank you. Also, you really liked the candy salad. I think that they did one day, so that was really exciting for him. But I also, something new that I feel like I learned tonight was that it includes time for pullouts, which I thought was really great because then the students aren't losing that instructional time during their classes, and it's a time that everyone has dedicated during the day. So I think that was genius, so thanks for doing that.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
Me too.
And then finally, I also thought it was really interesting, the outcomes that you provided regarding the the behavioral differences that you saw. So I was wondering then, you know, are you able, like, how can you directly relate, you know, win time to those behavior, like, or is this something that through the studies they also show, like, or was there any other changes that were made? Like, how do we attribute win to behavior changes?
Yeah, we can't necessarily, but there is research on that. So like John Hattie's done a ton of research on like effect sizes, on an advisory, and this is an advisory-like, we don't call it an advisory, but an advisory-like period. So there is a lot of research on that it improves behavior. We can't exactly say necessarily what we're doing in WIN is
directly impacting that, but what we can say is that we use what's happening in the classroom and with those behaviors to plan our lessons. So when I mentioned like team planning time, so each committee member is assigned a grade level. So they meet with that grade level and they ask that grade level, what are you seeing? What's going on? What behaviors are popping up? And you use that data then to plan the lessons or pick which lessons you're going to focus on that one. So
I had like quite a few, I helped plan 6th grade. We had quite a few like friendship issues. So then we did a lot of our SEL lessons on how to be a good friend, how to listen to your friends, how to constructively have a disagreement. And we kind of took what the teachers were saying and we put that, and we all planned together, put that into the SEL lessons.
And conversely, planning for the 8th grade, the feedback from the kids is our executive functioning is down. We're, you know, and it makes sense by the time they get all the way through, you know, so we eased up on that. We didn't, you know, they got it. So it can kind of go both ways.
I think the teacher feedback too for the behavior, because I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but it's like the same, we were at each at a different grade level, and you know, we would hear from the staff of each grade level, this is a concern. We did a lot of class meetings like in 7th grade then, like when we would hear like this is what the kids are doing, like they're very hands-on and touchy and doing things like this. So okay, we did the class meeting, like what do you think is the issue? Why are you all, you know, pulling, poking, doing things like this, like come up with your own kids. Then they would see a decrease in that. Great. And a couple weeks later when we were meeting, they would say, okay, Jennifer, now we need to cut for like, okay, now we're going to address this, you know, and then we would see a decrease in that behavior, which is behavioral infractions. So we were constantly monitoring that as grade levels and feedback from staff too. So it was just ongoing, and that's what we said. We'll see what next year brings, and we'll address that and with our lessons and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm a big fan and proponent of this, especially the daily aspect. To your point, I think math, reading, WIN is part of the curriculum, right? I think some of our adults could maybe benefit from some time spent in WIN. Me personally, the service learning days are something that I think would be very important and valuable, and something I'd like to see incorporated as we move forward. The only thing I would say is we've had some teacher feedback that wasn't great about what it does to their schedule, the daily nature. Is that something you guys are talking about, thinking about, how we kind of address those issues?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things. So we do get staff feedback all the time. So we listen to them. It's informal, it's during staff meetings, it's team meetings, and so we really look at all of that. We also look at the research, we look at, and so we kind of outweigh, but overwhelmingly the feedback is positive.
Yeah, we
so
looked
while
at other schools.
Yeah, while there are, you know, some teachers who may not necessarily understand WIN or understand that's kind of why one of our goals this year is to really focus on what is the purpose of WIN, what is SEL, why are we doing this? Why do our kids need this? So really looking at that.
And I think to your point, Mr. Mason, is that hopefully through WIN, I'm sorry, is that hopefully through WIN, we are providing our students with the skills to make sure that they are available to learning. So whether it's through their math or their ELA or their science classes, that their executive functioning skills then are honed to access the learning environment, and that their social emotional learning, that they're mentally healthy enough to be available to learning in a classroom setting. So it's kind of like which comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? It's that when we are healthy and our executive functioning skills are honed, we're able to be better students, right? So there is a give and a take process. Is that right? We have to give a little bit, perhaps a minute or two from each class in order to access these skills, but it is going to make us better students and better productive citizens.
Yeah, keep doing it. Yeah, keep doing it. It's great. And keep working and honing it, and we're here. Any way we can support you, let us know.
Yes, I'm very familiar with the goals. I've been on this committee since 2017. Goal 3 is that community outreach. So there's 3 goals, you know, learning about yourself, goal 1, learning about others, goal 2, and then that goal 3, which I think is one of the hardest to hit. But now that we've kind of really honed in on 1 and 2, we can really hit that 3, which is the community outreach. How can you help your community?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
So our next report is our student services update. So at District 107, we take pride in being responsive to the diverse needs of our students and ensuring that every learner is equipped for success. Tonight, Assistant Director for Student Services, Sarah Wadowski, will provide an update on the services currently offered to support our students. Sarah, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Okay. So, my first slide is really an overview of kind of all the buckets that my department handles. So there's financials and grants, McKinney-Vento, early intervention preschool, English language learners, 504, special education. And really the meat behind my department is to remove the barriers that prevent students from being able to access their academic curriculum and prevents them from being able to succeed. So we'll see that kind of in each slide and at the end. So first, I want to talk a little bit about McKinney-Vento and Home Hospital. McKinney-Vento is a federal law that ensures educational stability for homeless children and youth. We provide transportation. So if transportation is a barrier getting to school, we support them with that. They're not able to get school supplies, we support them with that. The lunch program, fee waivers, etc. And then we also have the home hospital service, homebound instruction. Students may be unable to attend school for a period of time. Usually it's a very short-term reason, whether it's a social emotional, a health reason, but if it's going to be an extended period and we know, we can provide those academic supports at home. Again, removing that barrier. They're not losing out on instructional time and that academic learning while they are homebound. So early intervention in preschool. So we work with early intervention coordinators. They reach out to me when there are students who are turning 3 years old. So children ages birth to 3 years old receive early intervention for various reasons. Parents may be referred from their pediatricians or have concerns in areas of their development, motor, speech language, all kinds of reasons. And they can receive those supports at home. Once they turn 3, they become our responsibility at the school. So the early intervention coordinators will reach out to me, provide the information. I meet with the families. We talk about what options we have here in the district, also using our LADZ cooperative. But, and then we conduct an evaluation. What are those impacts that we might see them having in a school setting? And so this year we had 12 students referred through early intervention. 9 of those students were found eligible for special education services. 6 of those were provided within Pleasantdale, and 3 are receiving those services through LADZ. We also provide walk-in speech services as well as our blended pre-K program here in the district. So then if we look over at the preschool graph, we are, as a district, supporting 48 students, 39 of which are within our preschool program in the district. 5 are receiving supports through LADZ, and 4 of those students are receiving that walk-in speech service. So our English language learners. This graph is, I found it really fascinating to dig into how many languages are being spoken by the students within our actual EL program. Not within the whole district, because there are students who may be reporting another language at home who previously qualified or just did not qualify at all for English language supports. So we currently have 16 languages spoken by our EL students. They're listed there. That's just kind of a graph to show you kind of what it looks like as a whole. And as we know, Serbian is our highest population, but it's followed very closely by Spanish and Macedonian. So those are pretty close. So yeah, I found this one a really, really good.
It's just so interesting. Yeah.
And then if you look at it here, this is our whole population. So the pie is the whole 831 students within our district, and those are our EL students. So that percentage of our population is receiving support from our EL department. And I put a little chart over there also for monitoring. So students qualify for EL supports based on a screening that is done at the beginning of the year, and then continued supports. So let me back up. The screener is done when they first enter our school or any US school. So it's not every year that they'll get a screener. But then we take the access in January, and that score will give them their English language proficiency. And based on that, they continue to qualify for a variety of levels of support. There's a high level of support with an access score of 1.0 to 2.9. Moderate level of support is 3.0 to 3.49, or low level of support, which is a 3.5 to a 4.79. So 4.8, they graduate from EL and move over to that monitoring column. We monitor students for 2 years. So this past year, we've had 14 students on their second year of monitoring. So those students will be former EL students next year. We've had 15 on year 1, so they will move up, and then that exited based on their scores this year were 11. So next year we will have 15 and 11 students being monitored.
Is there ever a situation where they don't I mean, it seems like you're
In the
talking about it
monitoring?
like, yeah, like you're.
There hasn't.
Okay.
No, it's just kind of to keep that extra eye on them for a little bit longer. But really, once they hit that score on, they're really being successful and are able to perform in the classroom without any supports. So now Section 504. Section 504 is a civil rights law that supports students who have an identified disability that impacts a major life activity in school. So it might be their learning, their thinking, their concentrating. That's what we might see at school. We have 504 plans for students who are diabetic, 504 plans for students who have celiac. We have 504s for many different reasons: anxiety, ADHD, autism, who may no longer need direct goal work from special education, may move over to a 504. So this graph is kind of showing the how many students in each grade level and the progression through. And then we can move over to our continuum of services in our special education. I made this slide to kind of emphasize what our continuum really looks like here in Pleasantdale. We have students who are in the general education classroom receiving support. Maybe it's for speech language, maybe it's push-in resource support that is really supported by our social worker. Where did she go? Did she leave? Oh, she left. So there may be general education support with minor support. They're not being pulled from the classroom for any academic learning. We have our co-taught model, which would be one general education teacher, a special education teacher supporting all students in that classroom within the general education curriculum. We have extended resource, which is when a student needs some sort of replacement curriculum. Maybe it's for math, maybe it's for foundational learning skills, phonics, maybe for reading. That's where our extended resource program comes in. And students who are needing more support in their day, maybe they need a smaller group setting all day long, we might lean on our LADSI cooperative. And they would have those specialized classes. And then if that is even not an option, we also look into therapeutic day schools that would have an even smaller, more specialized type of instruction for those students. Always keeping in mind when we're looking at students that it is our responsibility to provide them a free and appropriate public education. Our responsibility to remove those barriers, right? I said we're removing the barriers so that they can be educated, and also looking at what is their least restrictive environment. Least restrictive is number 1, most restrictive is number 5, and some kids may need 5, but our goal is always to bring them back down to the lowest possible. So you can tell I kind of like data, and I like looking at making charts. So the red and blue chart is showing the total enrollment within each grade level, blue being the gen ed students and red being the students receiving special education services. So really showing how relatively the same they are. I did do the math, I didn't put it on this graph, I probably should have, but it ranges between 8 to 14% of a grade level.
What is TDS?
Therapeutic day.
Did you say that? I
No,
missed
it's
that.
no, you're totally fine. It was on
Oh.
this
Oh,
side.
I'm so
No,
sorry.
Mary, you're totally fine.
Okay,
I
thank
thought,
you.
I toyed with putting it on that one. Therapeutic
Okay.
Day School, I just
Thank you.
abbreviated it in my graph as T. Yes.
Thank you.
No worries.
that makes sense.
I giggled because
Thank
I
you.
was like, I should have said that,
Oh.
and I didn't.
Okay,
You're
I got
fine.
you. I got you.
All good. So yeah, so we're looking at 119 students total receiving services through special education, which is 14% of our overall population, which, like I said, kind of correlated to each grade level as well, with some of them being a little bit lower, but 14 being our highest within a grade level. And like I had put into my summary, we have 294 students overall from all of these programs receiving support from the Student Services Department in one way or another. And I think it's really great that we can support that many students and remove those barriers. So my quote is, we need to give every individual the opportunity to reach their full potential, regardless of their background and circumstance. So removing the barriers.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I only have one question. Going back to the graph, I would almost be curious if we can include like the EL population.
Which one?
The one that you just showed with
This one right here?
Yeah, just because unless you said them out per grade, it's just out of curiosity.
I absolutely can, and believe it or not, Mary, I may have actually made a graph after the fact. To get that number of the 294, I did make a graph and kind of pull it all together.
Perfect.
So
Okay.
I included the 504s, and I cross-referenced our ELs, who are also receiving IEP services and 504 services, so we're not double counting everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, because that,
Yeah,
there are
right,
students who are, receiving EL and an IEP, and we don't want to make sure.
Totally.
But
I missed that, so it's under Pleasantdale, that's including EL students?
That's not, this
Okay.
one is just for receiving special education
I
services
see.
under
Okay.
an IEP, but I may have made a graph just to come up with my number.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you'd like, I
Yeah,
would be
can we
happy to
send
share
that
that with
out
you
on
guys.
Friday? Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'd be happy to
Thank
share
you.
that
That
with
would
you.
be so
Yeah.
good. Thank you
I do
very
have
much.
it needed.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along. Screen testing report, okay. Continuing our commitment to continuous improvement, Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning Jennifer Band will present an overview of the district's spring standardized testing results. The report will highlight student performance trends that inform our instructional planning for the coming year. So Jennifer, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so last year I gave this report in August. And I started doing the report a little bit differently, so I want to be able to tell stories with our data. So every year we're probably going to have some new stories because our kids change, our data changes, and we've got new things to react to. So this time I'm going to tell a few different stories because last year I told the story of our performance in math and how that has dramatically increased over the years since we put in a core curriculum in 2018. And our reading is well on its way with our core curriculum being put in place in 2022. So we are so this year. So we're going to start with IAR. And the reason we're going to start with IAR is because that's the grade level standard. So as you might remember, we give it in the spring. It's the state mandated assessment, the Illinois Assessment of Readiness. We give it to 3rd through 8th grades. They take reading and math for like 5 days, and it measures their annual progress in both growth and achievement for state and federal compliance. So this is the grade level standard, this is our target, this is why we're here. We're making sure that our students are properly educated and meet standards at grade level and hopefully exceed those standards as well. So where are the IR results? Because they're not here. That would be because of the state. So what's happening right now, we have IAR scores, but we don't know what they mean because ISB is in the process of redoing cut scores. And so they are embarking on this project. So if you see over here on the left, every test that we give and report to the state has different performance levels. So like IAR has 5 levels, SAT has 4 levels. ISA has 4 levels, but they're differently titled than SAT for IAR. And so it's gotten kind of confusing for
us to report results and things like that, and they just, it's a project they wanted to undertake. So what they're doing right now at the state level, they just completed a bunch of listening tours. They are redoing the cut scores for all of these assessments and recalibrating them to 4 proficiency levels. So every assessment we give from the state will now have an above proficient, proficient, approaching proficient, below proficient. For those of you who have been on the board for a while, you might remember a long time ago me saying that every state determines their proficiency levels differently. And so like in Ohio, meets, exceeds, and approaching all constitute proficient. But here in Illinois, only meets and exceeds constitutes proficient. So the state kind of finally recognized that we have some of the most rigorous cut scores in the country. And so a student who's proficient in Ohio and then shows up here is then below proficient.
I think
And
Governor
so-
Pritzker was just talking
Yeah,
about that, right?
yeah. So that's another one of the reasons that they're redoing the cut scores and putting them into these 4 performance level categories. So we have preliminary scores, but we don't know what they mean, and rather than play a guessing game and show you a bunch of data that could turn out to be wrong when they redo the cut scores, we're gonna wait and present that information when we have it, which is expected to be August, September. That's the best I can glean from what we got so far. So they're in the process of setting those right now. I think July is when they're doing the heavy work on them. They're gonna do some kind of other work on them. And by August, they'll have those cut scores, and then they will release them with the scores so that we can actually see how our kids did. So it's really frustrating to have to wait, but that's why we don't have them.
Can I ask a question while we're on the IR?
Yeah.
I know we started looking more at IR
Yes.
when we're doing placement.
Yes.
So are you guys internally using the scores that you have for the?
Yeah, so what we did look when we did this round of placement, like at the end of the year, and
Yeah.
basically what we looked for, we knew 750 was kind of a cut score to proficiency, and so we kind of looked at that, but we didn't have those scores, so like, we're using the IAR scores to inform placement, but we don't have like you have to get this to be placed into an advanced class.
Okay.
We'll still look at above I believe we're gonna do whatever the state does with their advanced placement law. And so if they say proficient and above proficient equal, you're going to the next level, that's kind of what we're gonna look at too. To a certain extent, like in conjunction with all the other assessments that we have. So that's a very good question. And I'm trying to think, like it didn't really come into play when we were doing this last round of placement because like we didn't have to consult another score to get more data. So, and we looked at last year's score too. Any other questions on IAR? So TBD. So that said, we move on to our next piece of data, which is our NWEA map, our measures of academic progress. Just to refresh your memories on that, it's nationally normed, it's a standardized achievement test, measures what they know, and then what they're ready to learn next. The test is computer adaptive, so when students get a question right, they might get some harder questions. When a student gets a question wrong, they might start getting some easier questions. As I've shared with you before, in order for students to grow on math, we really have to introduce them to more concepts. So like in math, if we introduce, so our math curriculum is so robust and our students are mastering it at such an early age that we're seeing these huge increases in our scores because the kids are ready for more quickly. In reading, we're not quite there yet. We are starting to see that shift, but again, we want students to learn and master their grade level standards in reading. So we're not really like super hyped up about, okay, you can explain someone's point of view, but now you can explain multiple characters' point of views. We want them to progress and like increase on that as is appropriate, not push them. With math, it's content, it's very specific. So it's like you do this, you do the next thing, you do this, you do the next thing. With reading, you're going deeper into the content and you're getting a better understanding of how to explain point of view, what does it mean, what's the first person, what's the second, like all of those things. And so to us, we're not pushing to be like, okay, you have to get to the next thing, you have to get to the next thing, you have to get to the next thing. Because they also have to read, write, and discuss it deeply. So our IAR scores would lead us to believe that we're doing really, really well. What we kind of looked at with our preliminary scores looked amazing for ELA. So if that holds and those cut scores look the way we think they're gonna look, it's gonna far outweigh our math performance. So I say all this to say, I'm not getting super hyped up about MAP scores, and we're gonna try to like kind of not get families too hyped up on MAP scores either, because in order to like grow, you have to like teach to the test, teach to the test, teach to the test, and that's not really how we do things here. We take students through a program that's very rigorous, and we wanna make sure they master their skills at each turn. So that's MAP. The way we use it, we get it in the fall and the spring. 2nd through 8th grade in the fall, 1st through 7th in the spring, so we only give it to the 8th graders once. The 8th graders can retake it in the winter if they would like another score before high school placement.
And Dr. Mann,
Yeah.
so we've eliminated the winter.
No winter,
forever.
yep, unless you're retaking it in 8th grade. We are going to eliminate 1st grade next year because we're not doing anything with it. It's like, let's give you another test on your way out the door, and we already have all of these classroom-based assessments in our Ames web probes to show us how our students are doing. So we're really not using that for anything at all except to like
Just do it.
give parents a 1st grade score at the end of the year, which means like nothing.
But
So,
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Do you think that them being exposed to the test though, like has an impact, like so if they're not exposed to it to 2nd grade, is that a concern?
It's a different test. So the
Okay.
1st grade test, the K2 test
Yeah.
is all auditory, so they listen to everything.
Oh.
So they're getting a completely different experience in 2nd grade anyway.
Makes
So
sense.
it doesn't, and as we've kind of seen, even though they've done a lot of smoothing of the scores between 1st and 2nd grade, when they go to the K2 and the 2-5, it seems like it's more of a hassle than it is a benefit for their instruction. So, reading and math, we use it to support, so that's, I'm highlighting, we use it to support instruction, intervention, and enrichment in tiers 1, 2, and 3, but we're not necessarily using it as our gold standard of like, are the kids doing exactly what we want them to be doing at each grade level? So, going into our data, showed you these tables last year. So we look at, on the far left, the median grade percentile. So that's when you order all of the scores from highest to lowest. The highest concentration of percentile rankings is that median score. So our students are all in every grade level performing above average. So 61st to 80th percent is considered above average. And then the breakdown of that is those bars, and then the average RIT and the number of students in that cohort group. Then this is another table I showed you last year that we'll continue to show. So this is our spring Pleasantdale RIT in comparison to the national mean RIT. So we are still outperforming the national norms by anywhere from 4 to 10 points, which is good. So again, like, if we were focusing on heavy math growth, I'd be like, this isn't good enough. But since we're not, this is sufficient. Math, a little bit different. So as we talked, our students are really proficient in math and ready for a lot more and exposed to a lot more, to the point where our teachers are kind of naturally enriching. So like, if you think about those 7th graders and where they started, which they probably started in Bridges, where they are winding up with 60% of the students at the 80th percentile or above, and their mean grade level percentile is 86, that's pretty incredible. So math's still going well too. And that's the one I do want to see a lot of growth on, because we're seeing students being more ready for higher level concepts. So this tells us, especially at the grade levels where their percentiles are 89, 85, 86, 86, let's up the ante a little bit when they go to the next grade level. They are ready as a cohort group.
Dr. Van,
Yeah.
question about are we seeing any trends in regards to like the 5th grade? Because I see like all of middle school is in the 80th,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, is that just this? I don't want to like single out this cohort, right? Or is it a trend that you see with 5th graders?
I mean, Thank you for asking that question.
Yes.
That is a
I can
question that has
answer it
been
too.
asked. But that has been a question that's been asked at this table year after year after year. We do see a dip in 5th grade. I don't want to get into, is it the transition from 4th to 5th? Is it, there could be a lot of reasons, but we traditionally have seen kind of that lower, lower is also relative, right? Our kids are still scoring very, very well, but in comparison to some of the other bars that we see, it is lower.
I can definitely pull the 5th grade cohort group and we can look at
Sure.
we can send that to you in a Friday update. That's easy to do. I will also say, in 5th grade, they have to take, at the end of the year, the science test, which is 3 days
There's
long.
some testing.
IAR, which is 5 days long. Then they went on outdoor ed, and then they came back and were like, hi, welcome back, here's math. So I think we have to take that into consideration too, and we don't have any choices on giving ISA and IAR. We have to give those, and to not give math is, like, we look at the assessment calendar every year and go, how can we spread this out? How can we make the optimal testing environment? Not to mention we're also like doing oral reading fluency on them and the Ames web probes and all that. So like, they're getting tested a lot at the end of the year. I'm least worried about this one. If we start seeing like big old drops in like our baseline screening data, if we start seeing drops in their classroom level data, if we start seeing drops in like significant drops in IAR, we do notice that like the scores will go down, like they'll perform really high in 4th grade and they'll come and they'll dip a little bit in 5th grade, but we haven't seen as big a dips as we've seen in previous years either from cohort groups going from 4th to 5th grade on IAR. So this doesn't worry me that much, but I can still send you guys the like beginning to end of the year 5th grade if you want to. So happy to do
We're
it.
just like the different year over
5th
year.
grade.
Yeah,
Did
year
they
to
grow?
year,
Did
5th
they
grade.
grow this year? I'm sure they grew.
Well, it's not the growth of the 5th grade, it's
did
more
they
like.
jump
She
from
wants to see
4th to
different cohort. Last
Yes.
year's 5th grade, the year before.
Oh,
Is
yeah,
it this
yeah. We can do
cohort
that
or
too.
is it every 5th
Yeah.
grade cohort?
Can I jump in for a second? This is also the grade that separates half take the 2-5.
Oh, thank you for reminding me of that.
Half take the 2-5 and kids that are in the accelerated take the 6+. So it's their first time taking
Thank
the
you.
6+ test. So it's kind of a mixed.
Good today.
I'm not sure how MAP takes both tests.
It'll be.
Puts it together.
Did we, I thought like before we offered them the option to take both, right? So that we could have more, have they
No,
ever taken?
no,
I
no.
thought
You
someone,
take one or the
someone
other.
personally told me their child was offered both. I mean, this was like a few years ago.
That
but-
was probably a long
Like
time
maybe
ago.
when we first implemented it.
Yeah, when we switched
Okay.
over, we emailed and said
And
you're
so you
going,
could
and you'll
just
see a drop in the percent
The
because
percentiles,
the
yeah.
percentile drops.
Right, right. Okay. Well, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
It did switch K2 though at one point, right? During COVID, we had.
We had second grade take K2
The K2
for like,
instead of the
yeah.
2-5
Yeah.
they take now.
Yeah. It was the fall 2020 second grade group because Yep. Any questions on that? Here's our grade level RIT in comparison to the national and the difference in the RIT scores. So again, still doing awesome, and this is what we would like to see. Okay, so next story. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Just, the MAP scores for math are what we want to see, right? They're doing great, but
We want to see that they're still, because we're enriching them further, we have more kids in advanced math than we've ever had before. And so that would lead us to believe that the kids are getting educated in a grade level above what the grade level content is. So we should constantly see growth because they're constantly being
Right.
exposed to higher level
And I know
content.
you touched on this, but go back to the reading part and why we're not worried about that, but we're excited about this.
Because it's kind of like it's a multiple choice reading comprehension test. And that's not necessarily the best way to measure a child's reading performance. It's going to give you some information, but again, it adjusts, so like it's going to start giving, the better they do, they're going to get harder and harder and harder questions. It also is the one that takes the most stamina for our kids too, so they tend to kind of like peter out and be like, is this done already? And like I've seen second graders get questions from Little Women, like things like that where it just like, I think it stresses our kids out honestly more than it gives us really good information with which to adjust their instruction. We have so much classroom level data that will tell us if students are reading and comprehending at grade level. Our Ames Web data will tell us how fast they're reading, how well they're decoding, like all of those things, like those to me are more valuable to our classroom instruction than a multiple choice test where we don't know what they're getting asked and day to day, how they're feeling, how they're doing. Like you can read one passage and interpret it one way, you can read another passage and interpret it another way. Math, it's like there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer. And so to me, like I think I've learned over the years, don't get super stressed out about math for reading, because when we see our IAR scores and our students are performing 60, 70, sometimes 80% meets exceeds, we're top in the state, we're hitting the grade level and more. So that's kind of, yeah.
Thank you.
So now, I don't usually like say, yeah, don't pay attention to that, but at this point, knowing our population, knowing our teachers, knowing our curriculum, and knowing what we do here, I think I'm at the point where I'm like, we know what to emphasize and not emphasize, and I don't want to emphasize an assessment that's going to give our kids more stress than really is going to give us benefits for instruction. So, but thank you, that was a really good question. So moving to another assessment that we give, our cognitive abilities test. So last year I showed you our full battery and how our performance is increasing both on our quantitative and our verbal measures. Just to give you a reminder of what COGAT is, it's students' readiness to learn using problem-solving skills. So it really tests their cognitive abilities, the way they think, and the way they approach problems. It's reasoning, abstract reasoning, identifying patterns and relationships, quantitatively in math, verbally in words, and then also non-verbally in their thinking. And we give it, usually in the winter, we do a full battery in 3rd and 6th, and we test verbal in 4th. I'm thinking we're going to be able to peel that off pretty soon. So that is also an exciting thing. We usually want to read, like, since the students in 3rd grade, it's the first assessment they take in COGAT, and I think they start thinking it's kind of like a game because it's fun and it's 10 minutes and it's words and it's cool, and I don't think they do as well as we see them do in 4th grade. And since it's such a pivotal year for us in terms of advanced placement, we don't want to always base it on that 3rd grade score. We want to recheck it. I have talked to Mrs. Vidal, our learning enrichment specialist, about incorporating more verbal activities into her enrichment lessons, which is also going to be important for the next thing I show you, so that kids are better prepared when they take that verbal assessment, because I still think like they're not quite sure what to make of it when it's put in front of them, even though we prepare them, even though we give them practice questions. I mean, like for those of you who've been here a while, we've been like working on this for years, like why is this happening only in verbal? So we're going to put some more things in place and see if we can't bring those scores up a little bit.
So what would we replace the
We just
placement in
wouldn't
advanced
get it.
learning? I'm sorry.
Oh, so go ahead.
If we use it for placement in advanced learning in
Oh.
3rd grade, what would we replace that with? What would we use?
Oh, we're still going to use it. No,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
saying I think we can peel off that 4th grade verbal.
Oh, I see.
only.
Okay.
That's like, I think we're getting there. But again, like, since it's such an important score for advanced learning, and we've studied those verbal scores year after year after year after year, and they just sometimes don't seem to fit with other scores, that we give it again. We used to give the whole thing again in 4th grade. Then we went down to just verbal and quantitative, and then when we saw our quantitative scores increase so much, we're like, okay, we're done with that. Okay, we think we got the information we need. So there's verbal, there's quantitative, there's nonverbal, and I want to focus tonight, our story is about our nonverbal scores. So the nonverbal assessment, just an example of a question, just so you remember like kind of what kids are getting asked to do. This is in 6th grade, but 3rd grade gets asked very similar questions. They're basically using their reasoning skills to figure out patterns and like different connections and things like that. So just a couple examples of 6th grade questions. And then that normal distribution of scores on COGAT, we look at that bell curve. So we expect the highest distribution of our students to be at the 5th stanine, which is the average. And those stanines are, the 7, 8 are above average, the 9 is very high. So way above average, way above average. So this is the current fifth graders, the fifth graders who are leaving and going to sixth grade, and these are their nonverbal scores. So what you can see is we do have some pretty high nonverbal reasoning. We're at like, oops, sorry, hold on. Oh no, I didn't write it down, hold on. 45% of our students are in that above average range, that 7th, 8th, and 9th stay on. The current fourth graders who are going into fifth grade, we've got 44% of our students in the 7th, 8th, and 9th stay nines. And I'm showing you this because a couple years ago, we put in place a talent development program in K through 3, where Mrs. Bedell, our learning enrichment specialist, is going to every class, kindergarten through third grade, for 30 minutes a week, and she's doing critical thinking, collaboration, creativity lessons. She has an entire curriculum for all 4 grade levels, and all the kids get it. Sometimes our teachers will be like, this kid needs extra reading, can they miss enrichment? No. Nobody can miss enrichment because it's for everyone, and we'll find some other time. Like, yes, we'll get them the reading they need, but everybody should get the opportunity to increase their critical thinking skills and get provided enrichment, because students have talents in so many different areas. So here's the current third grade. So these are students who have received these lessons from kindergarten, and this is their performance on the nonverbal assessment. These are the third graders going into fourth grade, and their 68% of the grade level is scoring in the 7th, 8th, and 9th stay nines. And so we're gonna start tracking this year after year in third grade to see if that program is bearing fruit like we think it is, which I think it is. So this was just, it was something I came across when I was looking at data this year, and I was like, this needs to be shared. This is the proof that giving every student enrichment is going to uncover talents and gifts that we didn't see previously in students, and the data shows it. So really exciting. The last thing I wanted to show you, since we didn't have IAR and we're kind of moving in this new direction, what I've said year over year is building a solid core tier 1 curriculum is going to yield so many results in terms of what we can do with students instructionally that we won't have to rely as much on standardized assessments like math. So I wanted to show you something we engaged in this year at every grade level, but I'm showing you a kindergarten example of doing data-based problem solving at tier 1. So this is the core instruction that every child receives. The example I'm going to show you is with the kindergarten team on phonemic awareness. So phonemic awareness is students' ability to hear, identify, and manipulate individual sounds or phonemes within words. There are 8 measures on this assessment we give students. We give it to them 3 times a year, first trimester, second trimester, and the end of third. There are 5 questions on each measure. The students have to identify the correct sound and skill in 5 different words. It changes every trimester. A 5 out of 5 is considered proficient, and our expectation is that 80% or more of our students are proficient on all of the measures. So it goes along with our multi-tiered systems of support, where our typical breakdown of what we would expect is 80% of our students performing proficiently at tier 1. We might have up to 15% of our students who are needing targeted intervention at tier 2, and then intensive 5% tier 3. So that's kind of our North Star of like, is our core curriculum achieving what we want it to achieve? And so anytime we do an assessment, a probe, a screener, our classroom level assessments, that's what we want to see. Even like 100% would be amazing all the time, but we know that's not necessarily realistic because we're dealing with kids, not robots and widgets. So we have a database problem solving process that we use for tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 instruction. We just started applying this process to tier 1 this year. So we define the problem, we analyze it, we implement a plan, and then we evaluate, did that plan work? So first trimester, we noticed we had 2 measures on the phonemic awareness assessment where students were not performing well. And it was the final phonemes and the adding initial phonemes. The students were performing at 45% proficient on final and 28% proficient on adding. So those numbers indicate the number of students. We wanted to increase that to 80%, and so we set a goal
that we're going to increase that to 80% proficient by the trimester 2 assessment. So the teachers talked about what kinds of strategies they would all use at the kindergarten grade level to get them there. So the results, final phoneme went from 45% to 67%. So we saw a 22% increase, which was great. And we met the goal in adding initial phonemes. We went from 28% to 84%, so we had a 56% increase. So we met one goal, we didn't meet the other. So we looked at our trimester 2 phonemic awareness data again and said, okay, this had the final phoneme has to stay as a goal. We have to keep monitoring that. Adding initial, we're going to fade the support on that because our students have mastered to a great extent that skill. So we also saw a couple other areas where we were like, isolating medial sounds and substituting initial phonemes, we also saw that students weren't quite proficient. So we made those goals as well. So now we have 3 skills that we're monitoring, one from trimester 1 on, and these 2 came on for trimester 2. So our goal, 80 to 100% on each measure. So at the end of the year, and what I challenged our kindergarten teachers to do is, I want you guys to all implement the same strategies for these 3 skills so that we can actually pinpoint what strategies work. Because they were all doing different stuff the first time around. So when we went to trimester, it was like, I did this, I did this, I did this. Everybody used the same 3 strategies, and let's see what happens. And so what wound up happening with final phoneme is we met the goal. We went to 83% proficient. So we went from starting at, we went from 45 to 76 to 83. So definitely met the goal. And applying the same strategy in every classroom meant we found the strategies that work, and all of the students improved, not just one classroom of kids improved. Isolating and substituting, we got very close to the goal, 76% proficient, 74% proficient. So that was good news as well, and we're documenting those strategies that work. So when we looked at the end of the year assessment data, every area was at least 80% or above with the exception of those 2, but we were close. And then all our other areas were at 90% proficient and above, just so you see it in data form. And that's how database problem solving works, is you look at your data, you identify something that's going on that you need to address. You have a hypothesis for why it's happening. You set a goal to address that hypothesis. You employ the strategies that you decided to use. You look at the data. Did it work? Great. If it didn't, we set another goal. And we just keep working at it and working at it and working at it. Every year of kids is going to be different. It may not be these 3, but like next year with the new kindergartners, it may not be these 3, but we'll be able to track it because we'll be able to say, okay, year over year, is final phoneme like an issue? Let's employ some strategies that we know work. Or was that just a one-time thing and it had something to do with the language development piece, and now we're moving on to a different area we have to address. So Tier 1 problem solving allows us to be really targeted for the entire grade level and respond in real time to the data that we're seeing and use it to increase student performance. So that does so much more for us than students taking a math test on one day would ever give us, because we use real targeted data that applies to every single one of our kids, and we can pinpoint to the kid. We can pull this data and say, it's these 5 kids who are still hanging out there that we need to support. So let's do a group with them. We can get so targeted now that we have a core curriculum that's clearly articulated and an assessment system that allows us to evaluate that program, that here we are. So we're just going to see reading continue to improve, because now we can be this targeted. So wanted to show you that because I thought it was exciting and just something that's a little bit different than here are all the grade level standardized test scores. So, so we're going to make small daily improvements that lead to stunning results over time.
Great.
Any questions? Sorry, it was a little long.
I just have one question. And so synthesizing all of the data, would you say that our test score data supports the new CKLA program we're using?
Yeah, in
leaps and bounds, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's probably a dumb question, but
it's not a dumb
okay.
question.
Just
if the IAR results that we saw, if Dr. Pelzette and I just kind of messed around in the scale school. We were like, oh, let's just see what it would look like if it was 750, just for fun.
That's what we
It
do.
was pretty incredible. So
that's
yeah,
wonderful.
they're reading,
Yeah.
writing, comprehending at a very high level at the grade level, which is exactly what we want to see. And when we get them to that point, then we can start being like, okay, go deeper. Okay, go keep going deeper. So, and,
So you think that growth is supported by the curriculum we're using?
oh yeah,
Okay.
oh yeah,
I wanted to
absolutely.
make that connection
Yeah.
clear. Okay. Yeah, no, I think that it's phenomenal.
And just even looking, like, there's some other, like, things I can show you in the fall, like, even looking at oral reading fluency and vocabulary and reading comprehension, things like that, we're seeing well above 80% of the grade level performing at tier 1, so.
Which is great.
We have an MTSS consultant who comes and works with us, and she sat in some of our data review meetings, and when we put our data up there, she's like, do you know how many districts would, she's so impressed. She's like, you never see this.
Okay.
Like, the districts I work with, this is not what's happening in the districts I work with. So it's really special.
Exciting. Okay, great. Last question, so sorry. So do we have to take math testing?
No, we don't.
I mean, like, I know we
We don't.
use it for
Yeah.
like differentiation and instruction purposes,
Our
but
teachers have asked me the same
I'm
question.
just curious, like,
And they're
is it
starting to
mandated?
ask more and more and more as we're getting more
Right.
adept in
Oh.
assessing student performance. We don't,
Mm-hmm.
but we do have some programming that includes using MAP to,
Sure.
we use it for it's one of the measures we use to identify for advanced learning. We often use it for IEP progress or to.
I see. Okay.
It is nice to have as another measure, so it's like when we see baseline data where like the student isn't performing very well, but they perform really well on MAP,
Oh,
it just gives us like another curriculum-based measure to be like, what's really going on here?
Got
So
it.
I'm not ready to get rid
Oh,
of it.
sure. I was just curious.
Although I'd kind of like to, because we test the kids a lot.
Right.
I'm not ready for that yet.
Got it. Well, at minimum, it shows.
We are not I shouldn't say
Right.
we are not ready for that yet.
Right,
Because we
okay.
have to untangle some programs from MAP
Sure.
and plus people are used to it and all this, like.
Well, yeah, I was just curious.
Just
if it
as
was
we've transitioned to some other things, like if we were to transition out of doing MAP twice a year or like we've cut it down.
Yeah.
It would be a slow transition if we made a transition away from it.
Got it. Okay. Well, we're starting, I think, already with first, so.
Yeah.
We're kind of just, yeah. All right, great.
Thank you.
That's all thank you. This is incredible to be able to pinpoint these areas of improvement. I think is just incredible for our students.
So when I came here 8 years ago, I said this is where I wanted us to be, so.
Well, that doesn't mean you're done, like.
No, we're not done.
You're not getting rid of you.
No, we gotta do that every year. No, we
Don't go
have
anywhere.
new data to look at every single year, so no,
Okay.
we got a long ways to go too. Thank you.
Moving on, facilities update. At the April Board of Education meeting, the board established several key priorities for facilities improvements. These priorities have guided the administration in developing a range of responsive facility options. This evening, I'm going to present a series of recommendations developed by our administrative team that aim to partially or fully address the board's stated goals. Oh, sorry. All right. So, just little bit of background, real quick. In April, the board did have a discussion about some of those priorities for now and into the future, and kind of making sure that we're keeping our eyes on making sure that our buildings are meeting the needs of our students, that we're looking at our programs and looking for ways to improve. Once again, the first bullet up there is enhancing safety and security of our schools, specifically looking at a second exit at the elementary school. That was kind of one of the focuses that we had as we started to put some options together. We also want to address space issues now and into the future. At the April board meeting, the board also directed the administration to work with our district architect to develop a space study. So that space study came back. I'm going to share some data from that, and it shows that there are some that we're pretty filled up, especially at the elementary school. Expanding early childhood opportunities to allow for that full day experience that we would love to offer, and also trying to eliminate that preschool wait list. Developing a developmentally appropriate experience for fifth grade. Again, we've talked about those fifth graders and how that transition can be really difficult to middle school when you're 9 or 10 years old. And then allowing for program improvements, which was a newer one that the board talked about in April, both at the elementary school and at the middle school, being able to offer some things that we haven't currently been able to offer. I want to start off with the space study. And again, just kind of a quick overview. There are 3 slides that run through some of the data from that space study. The first looks at our classrooms, and the main takeaway there is that our classrooms are either at, or so grade level classrooms, your kindergarten rooms, your first grade rooms, your second grade rooms, so on and so forth, are at or near full capacity. Our specials classrooms, and so we'll get into that. It's more than just art and music and things like that, but we'll get into that, and that does offer some opportunities for additional space, but there's also a trade-off with that. The board would have to, if that's a direction that they wanted to go, they would have to talk about collapsing programs or taking programs away from some specials. And then our office and small group spaces are really crowded and at or really over capacity. So we're going to have 3 slides with some data in those 3 areas. And I'm going to apologize in advance. I do not like having a ton of information on a slide, but this is a ton of information on a slide. So I apologize for that. But,
So sorry, who did this study again? I'm so sorry. Who did the study again?
Our architect.
TRS?
Yeah, STR.
STR. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I missed that.
So again, what we have here is the way this is broken down is by grade level program, so pre-K, kindergarten first, all the way through 4th. The room number, the approximate square footage of each one of those rooms, the approximate capacity based on code, right? So for our pre-K room, technically you can have 50 people in that classroom. Now clearly we're not going to have a class of 50, right? Or at the first grade we're not going to have sections of 43. But part of a capacity study is to show what your total capacity is, right? So that's kind of the purpose of that column. The next is just the number of sections that are assigned to that room. And then the schedule, the number of students that are actually kind of in that room based on board policy, right? So what you see, and really the 3 final columns are those columns that tell the story. So for example, in preschool, it has a capacity of 60 students. So again, if you think about 4 sections, 2 a.m., 2 p.m., 15 in each, that's 60 students. Our actual enrollment is about 40. We're at 67% capacity for preschool. If you look at the other grade levels, and again, I won't run through the math, you guys can do the math. If you have a capacity of 80, let's use second grade, a capacity of 96 students, you have 99 students in the second grade, your percent of scheduled capacity is 103, or over your scheduled capacity. So as you can see, from kindergarten through 4th grade, we're at anywhere from 83 at the low end for 3rd grade to 103% of capacity for 2nd grade. Any questions?
And it's 2nd grade is our cohort that we had 5 sections for, and they went down to 4, correct?
Correct.
Okay, dumb question, but I'll just ask it. So if we increase the number of sections, that would obviously decrease the percentage of capacity?
It would, but we need to find another room.
Oh, sure, I'm just
right. It would.
Big picture. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
We need to find some.
Sure, of course. Okay.
Moving along to our specials classroom. So again, this includes gym, library, not just your music room and your art room. Again, you can have 1 section in there at a time. The teacher can doesn't mean that the teacher only has 1 section. It means at any given time there's a single class in that classroom, right? And they use the scheduled class size of 25 just to calculate on the high end, knowing full well that our kindergartens are, more closer to 20. And so again, you have some room for growth here, right? You can put music on a cart, you can put Spanish on a cart, you can put art on a cart, and free up some capacity within your class, within your school. Again, we're not putting 4,100 students in any single space. We're not putting, even at the lunch, we're not putting 250 students in there. Generally, it's about 100 students that are scheduled into a lunch period at a time. But again, wanted to just kind of show an overview of where we're at for those specialist classrooms.
Can you go back real quick? It's interesting that, I mean, it's obviously only 50 square feet, but that Spanish went down to 800 square feet, where the fourth or the 850.
Spanish room's a little bit smaller.
Is it? I did not realize. Okay, thank you.
And then this is our kind of offices, small group space. Again, there's some opportunities here. So like our speech program, there were some notes, and I just couldn't fit them on the slide, so I'll share them with the board. But when you look at speech, we have 3 SLPs sharing a space. Ideally, that would be 3 separate spaces. Our EL resource, small group flex space, you have 1 EL, 1 resource, 2 reversible small group spaces. Ideally, those would be 4 separate spaces. Reading specialists and aides, you have 2 reading specialists and aid in the classroom. You know, you'd have separate spaces for those. Now, there are some opportunities with the enrichment class, with the extended resource class, and with the EL class, where those aren't being used at full capacity. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, when we get into some of the options that we've drafted, a little bit about how we could recapture some spaces and why we actually have not looked at recapturing some of the EL spaces and special education spaces in which there may be some opportunity. So I want to jump into.
Can you just clarify? So sorry. Where are these? So the resource 2 small group. Where is that room located?
Is that the second?
Yes.
This one right here. That's the blue room.
Is that
next to the library. Next to the library.
Okay, and then enrichment. Where is that one? I'm just looking at the one
That
with
is
the large square footage.
upstairs, kind of top of the.
Okay, and then extended resource, is that upstairs as well?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so just a little bit of guiding information before we jump into the options. So the administrative team developed 4 different options for the board's consideration. All of the options meet some or all of the board's priorities. Not all of the options meet all of the priorities. There also, I tried to put this together in a way that made sense and was cogent and I could kind of talk through, but realize that there's the ability to mix and match. When I get into the options, I'll explain that a little bit further, but you can kind of take some things from option 1 and include it in option 3, you know, some things from option 3 and create a different option, but I tried to kind of put it together in a way that made sense rather than just throw a whole bunch of stuff at the board. Costs have not been assigned to these options, however, they go from 0 cost to construction projects, which we all know have a cost associated with that. Each option was evaluated based on the board's stated priorities. So again, the impact, looking at the educational impact, space now and into the future, 5th grade at the elementary school, preschool expansion, and then that safety improvement, specifically a second exit at the middle school, and then are we able to also implement some program improvements, again rated on a scale from it fully addresses, partially addresses, or not addressed, and then finally I added pros and cons to each option as well. So let's jump into those options. The option 1 is programmatic cuts and changes to our current programming. So what we could do is we can discontinue offering preschool. We are not required to offer preschool. We can reclaim 2 rooms by no longer offering preschool. We would still be required to offer special education services and early intervention, which we would generally probably farm out to LADSI, or we would contract with other programs to provide those services. We put Spanish on a cart. We could recapture 1 classroom. We could put art on a cart and recapture a classroom. We do consider music, but moving around the building with a grand piano, not advisable. The pros to this plan are that there's really no cost associated with it. There's no construction that's necessary. We have the spaces that we can recapture and reuse. The cons are that it does impact services. We know that early childhood programs work and that they help kids, and not offering those services on a wide scale will have an academic impact. It speaks to the values of the board, and again, I want to go back to why we chose Spanish and art and not the special education room or the EL room. We're dealing with, in those 2 cases, we're dealing with populations that we're working to level the playing field. Them having their own dedicated space speaks to the district's and the administration's priorities, and that even students who may not learn typically still deserve that space. With Spanish and art, everybody has art on a card. Everybody has Spanish on a card. It doesn't just impact a certain, possibly already marginalized population.
What about the enrichment classroom?
The enrichment classroom also does work with a small group, and she does do quite a bit of instruction in that classroom. So we did consider that too, but felt like, again, that's another special population. It doesn't, we wanted, if we're gonna have an impact, we want it to be.
I thought we just said everyone gets the enrichment.
They do, but she also is working
They
in her
come to the
classroom.
classroom.
They come to the classroom.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Again, as we evaluate this option based on the board's priorities, does it have an educational impact? This actually probably has a negative educational impact for our students. Doesn't address the space issues now and into the future. It does help us free up that classroom space to get the 5th graders to the elementary school. It doesn't expand preschool, it actually contracts our preschool program. It doesn't address the second exit or any other safety pieces, and it does not allow for program improvements. Okay. Option 2, looking at mobile classrooms. So we could add 4 mobile classrooms to the rear of the elementary school. We would need to add some structural improvements like foundation, power, plumbing. We'd want to make sure that we put like the safety film on the windows. We'd want to have obviously fire and sprinklers and things like that added. So there are some additional kind of structural pieces that would have to be considered there. It does have a limited lifespan, so I think you can get, the ROE would issue a 3-year kind of certificate for that. Now you can renew that certificate. In all fairness, the ROE and ISB don't really love renewing those certificates because they're not supposed to be permanent. They're supposed to be temporary. The pros are that it can be implemented relatively easily, and it could be removed in the future, and it's a low-cost option. Now, it's not a no-cost option, but it's a low-cost option. The cons are that it creates additional safety issues, right? So now we have kids who are going to be traveling outside of the school, kind of the walls of the school to get to their classroom when it's time for PE or music or art. They would be going outside to get back. You have to have them by code 30 feet from the building, so they can't be right up next to the building. They aesthetically aren't a great fit with our neighborhood, and it would create a traffic issue in that they would be kind of in the back of the building and would limit the amount of traffic that can kind of go back. So you're going to see more of probably a backup onto School Street. Again, as we evaluate it next to or against the priorities, educational impact, it doesn't really make a huge impact to our education. It doesn't really address the space issues now into the future. It does get 5th grade over to the elementary school. It doesn't expand preschool, but it doesn't contract preschool either. It doesn't address that second exit or other safety. It actually probably creates more safety issues. And then it doesn't allow for program improvements. And this is where that mixing and matching is going to come in my next one. Any questions on this one? Oh, I do have an example. So this is kind of what they look like. I just thought the visual is helpful. One of the standard items that come.
The inside view's not bad.
What's that?
Yeah, the inside looks great.
Well, the standard features are they have a hard panel exterior siding or vinyl siding, steel-clad double exterior doors, dual glazed low E exterior windows, gutters and downspouts, carpet included in the classrooms, vinyl wrapped gypsum wall finish. Some of the additional or optional pieces that it also has some HVAC and all of that. So and CO2 sensors and things like that. Classroom furniture and casework are extra. Break room or like a teacher's lounge or office space would be extra. ADA accessible restroom, would be an additional cost. Security bars or screens, things like that, those all would be additional costs. All right, so that is the mobile classroom. Option 3 is expanding our current footprint. So this is where that mixing and matching can come in, right? So you can say, I want, because one of the options is going to be to do some conversion at the middle school to turn the 5th grade wing into an early childhood center, right? So we're going to put mobiles in the back of the elementary school. We're going to take our 5th grade and put them there, and then we're going to do the conversion of the previous 5th grade classrooms into an early childhood center. So that isn't necessarily, like, that would be a mix and match. That's not, this is a much more extensive option, but if you wanted, you're like, mobiles sound great, and we also like the early childhood at the middle school, you can mix and match. So again, we tried to put this together in a cogent way, but at the end of the day, mixing and matching works too. So option 3, expanding our current footprint. So we'd be looking at building 8 classrooms onto the rear of the elementary school, building out that 5th grade wing into an early childhood center. I do have some schematic or some drawings of it, so you'll get to see it in a second. The pros that it doesn't require any purchase of land. The cons are that the cost exceeds our current funding capacity. It doesn't fully address that future growth. Doesn't give us, it really gets us right where we need to be. Doesn't give us much of a cushion. Less play space at the elementary school, less green space at the middle school. Creates a traffic issue at the elementary school, just as the mobiles would. Maybe a little bit more, because I think this takes up a little bit more space. It could create a traffic issue at the middle school as well, once you see the schematic, because you're going to have more drop-off at the middle school, because all of the preschoolers would be dropped off at the middle school as well. So again, if we evaluate this based on the board's priorities, does it have an educational impact? It has a positive educational impact. Does it address space issues now and in the future? Yes, it addresses them now. It could be safe to say that it addresses them in the future, but it's hard to say. It doesn't give us the total cushion. The 5th grade, it does get the 5th grade to the elementary school. It does expand the preschool. It doesn't address the safety or additional program improvements. And so this is what the middle school oh shoot, I made a mistake. So that should say elementary expansion. I apologize, the heading is incorrect. That is what 8 classrooms on the back of the elementary school would look like.
And why would we need 8 as opposed to,
It's part of the future growth. I mean, we can go down to 4, but it doesn't address the future piece. I know the board, when we talked in April, said like we want as final a solution as you can propose.
Could drop-off still happen in that area?
It would be tight. It would be really, really tight. It would be tight. I don't want to say no, because until you really start to get into the design process and laying it out more so than just this kind of plug and play that we've done here, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. The change at the middle school would be, so this is the 5th grade. This is the 5th grade wing kind of right here. So looking at additional classrooms here, being able to use all of this for early childhood. Playground right here, it would have its own dedicated entrance. You can have a drop off that kind of goes up onto our property, and then parents can drop off.
Dave, are you saying this is like a package, so expansion at the elementary and expansion at?
Again, it can be both. It can be one. It can be the other. It can be both. It can be mix and match. Again, I try to just put them together in a way that kind of made sense. But again, we can play around with the options.
But your original thought was together.
Correct. Correct. That's the way we put this option.
So expanding our total footprint by doing it a little bit at both buildings.
Correct.
And reconfiguring the other things we talked about. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Good questions? Okay, the last option, option 4, is to capitalize on new opportunities. As the board knows, at their June, I believe it was 2nd meeting on Monday, the Lyons Township High School committed to creating an offer to the Pleasantdale School District for 7 acres of property on their LT land. Again, a rare opportunity. And this capitalizes on that opportunity. I know that as a board, 2 boards, we're kind of negotiating that right now and figuring out the terms of what that sale would look like. But I wanted to use that as one of the options if that were to become a reality, right? So again, there's some variable there. But what we would be looking at is a 14-room school, gym, art, music, office, conference room, kind of your basic school, being able to develop a campus structure with the elementary school and this new property, this new opportunity. The pros are that it accomplishes all the board's priorities, makes the most of the property opportunity that is available to the board. It's a permanent solution to the space issues that we face. The con is it requires additional funding, right?
A lot of additional funding.
Yeah, it would require additional funding for sure. And again, those, you can see the board priorities there at the bottom. Now, I don't have as nice of a picture as I did for the other, but I tried to put something together. This is based on 2 different options. One that I like this option off of that is kind of creates this campus structure, almost with this White Buffalo Park being almost like a courtyard. If you think about, here's the elementary, here would be the new opportunity, and here would be like still a play area. This is the area that the architect likes best, and the reason he likes it best is because it's on 2 corners, so it's easy in, easy out. This opportunity does not address the second exit. His point was, once this gets developed, there are going to be roads all over this, and you can find a second exit. And I'm like, but we don't know for sure. This, we would have to work with the Park District. Again, this is not our property. We would have to work with the Park District to have an access road, and then we'd have to work probably with the village to have an access road to 80F Place. I think this is 80F Place, right? Yeah, and whichever is off of Howard, yeah. But again, that is a very, very rough kind of schematic of what it could look like. Question?
Are the red lines streets?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. They don't currently exist. Well, I mean, this road exists,
Yeah.
but it ends here.
This is the architecture's wheel. I just would be very nervous to have kids by 2 busy streets.
Right
So
here,
that
you
makes me
mean?
very nervous, yeah.
In this
Yes,
location?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not excited about that. I mean, I understand his thought process, but those are 2 very busy.
Yeah, and it's right across the street from
Right.
UPS.
Totally.
And, yeah, there are some other
think it also takes away
disadvantages. I think strictly from a building standpoint, from a construction standpoint, again, architects think the way architects think, right?
Right.
So they don't always necessarily think about, wait, there's a giant UPS processing
Right.
facility literally right across the street.
It's the
So-
farthest possible location from the school.
Right.
Existing school.
Right.
Basically.
I also like being able to kind of share some resources, the park
Yeah.
or parking
Yeah.
lot, or, like.
Or even like busing logistics, like.
Oh, good point.
Yeah. I mean, like, what does that look like,
Yeah.
having it being so far out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, oh, you mean
second-
over here?
Right.
Right. Again, I just wanted to give options, right? Like,
Right.
and again, some of this is still theoretical, right? Like, we haven't actually
Right.
agreed to anything with LT yet, so we need to, I don't wanna put the cart before the horse.
And you were correct, it would link up to 80th. That's
80th is the number,
place
right,
here.
okay.
So that's.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
So, kind of just a overview of all of the options, so we can kind of.
So sorry, can I ask one more question?
Yeah,
So
of
going
course.
back to that, so if it does link up, theoretically, if it does link up to 80th, do we have to do anything in terms of like, can those streets have the
No.
capacity for buses and
Yeah,
like, I mean, that's probably getting in the weeds.
Yeah,
I'm
we'd
just
have to
curious.
do some sort of capacity study and figure
Okay.
that out. That's a great question.
Just out of
Again, this is all kind of still in the theoretical kind of zone right now, but yeah, we'd have to figure all of that stuff out. For sure.
I was just curious, okay.
Like, I'm not even really sure, to be honest with you, if this is fully 7 acres. I just tried to take like the Park District has 7 acres, so I took theirs and like, okay, that looks about right. So, again, review of all of the options.
So
there.
sorry, got another question.
Uh-huh.
So in that theoretical, the proposed option 3 with the 14, do you have any idea, would that be specific, like, have you gotten into which grade levels or any of those?
Yeah, not, one of the things that we've, and I appreciate you bringing that up, that as an administrative team we've talked about is that there may be some wisdom if we end up buying this land, and if we end up wanting to build a building, is don't make it an early childhood center, make it a 3rd and 4th grade, or I'm sorry, a 4th and 5th grade, or a 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade building, because the elementary school already has classrooms with toilets. It already has some of the spaces, you know what I mean? So again, and there's a bit of a savings because the classrooms don't need to be as large. You need a larger classroom for early childhood. You don't need a toilet room in every classroom. So again, that's a possibility. That's a possibility.
Theoretically, again, we're talking, you could do K through 2, 3 through 5, and 6 through 8, all in separate buildings,
Correct.
assuming we were to build a 3rd campus.
Correct. Food for thought. Great question. Thank you. So again, next steps, discuss the best course of action. Begin to put a plan in place around the preferred option. Communicate the board's decision to the community and develop an implementation plan for whatever action the board deems most appropriate. Again, I tried to give you guys the widest, number of options, everything like from a 0 cost to a significant cost, right? And food for thought. So.
No, thank you.
So yes.
How many of the feeder schools don't have a preschool program?
I believe they all have preschool. They all have.
We looked at that at one time.
Yeah, we
I'm
did.
curious if we haven't-
I mean, there are different configurations. Some are preschool for all, and they have grants, and some are tuition based like ours. But I believe they all offer preschool. Some in dedicated buildings. Some, they're integrated into the school districts that are into the school buildings that they already have. I guess. So. I want to try and have what's our next step here, right? Like, I think that there's a lot presented here, so like I'm not gonna say, what do you want me to do, right? Like, but I do think we need to start to narrow in on which option or which combination of options makes sense. Again, you may say, mobiles sound great and the early childhood at the middle school sounds great. Let's do that. Okay, great. I'll start working on that. Or you may say, option 2 is great, or option 3 is great, or option 4 is great, option 1 is great, whatever. But again, I think kind of starting to narrow that down is going to be it's going to be important.
I personally think we would be doing a disservice by not engaging more on the lab opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't mean take a step, but I mean, seeing where
Continue
we
doing
can
the
come
rest of
to
it.
on a negotiation on that. I also like the fact that that doesn't lock us into having to do something imminently. I mean, gives us the option to be able to do something should it occur, but we don't have to. But then we can, potentially also have the option to divest that if the need doesn't come to us to build. So
I tend to agree, and I think even some of the public comments today were in support of that narrative.
I agree too. I mean, I think like option 1, I would rather defer on our goals than go with option 1. Don't want to cut any, put art on a card or cut any programming within the district in order to like obtain these goals that we eventually want to get to. So,
I would agree with
I would
that
even
as well.
second the mobiles. Because that's a temporary.
I thought they looked great.
They did look great. But
Well, that's in a tornado,
but I think that's just a temporary. That's just a Band-Aid. Like that's not solving a problem.
Yeah. And I look at option 1 like it's a developmental skill to go to a different classroom and the regulation and waiting in line and quieting yourself in a new environment. And I think you're removing some of those things that we're trying to build, like in win and things like that. It's like you're taking those opportunities away by putting those on a cart and bringing them into the classroom. I'm not a fan of that approach.
No,
I know you
I don't
presented
place
the
value
option,
on it, like I'll let you determine the value on each one of those options. My job is to give you options, good, bad, or the other. It's good, bad, or whatever. It's up to you to evaluate those options based on where the board stands on those. So, great.
I mean, to me, it sounds like, and if anyone's in favor of the mobile, but it seems to me everyone is not in favor of option one being carting some of our services or classes or putting mobile homes out in
I think we could nix
mobile
it.
classrooms.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Mobile classroom. No, you're good.
There should be a nicer term.
But
Yes.
but we also can't truly move on to what our next steps are until we have a fuller picture of
100%.
our ability to acquire or not acquire the land.
100%.
And at what cost.
And it will cost.
Right.
Because again, like to everyone's point, we can acquire the land at a price that makes sense, and we decide not to build, that at least we own that land, and that's an option we can take. But if we do acquire land and build, it's gonna be,
right.
we're talking about a big number that's gonna require
That we didn't have the support
a lot of,
previously.
yeah, not only a lot of dollars, but it's gonna require public support that
Sure.
appears to maybe not be there at this point. So it's
I
just,
do think.
I think we have to
I
be
agree.
more clear on what our real options are before we can
Yeah, no, and I agree, and I think
focus
there's.
on a plan.
The thing I also like about it is you presented a plan that showed maybe an addition to the elementary, and maybe not the most ideal, like, of solutions, but if you had that extra land, it kind of eliminates some of those concerns of like, traffic patterns and things like that. It can lend itself to that. Again, kind of, I think the land option gives us option.
Sure.
Like, doesn't necessarily mean we have to build another building, again, anytime soon, but it does give us
Sure.
more freedom in some of those other options we've talked about. What I'd be curious is, I mean, I think you closed out already, but like,
No, I can go
when
back.
you showed that piece of land, is that adjacent to like what is currently owned by the park district? Like, no, because it's
No,
the
oh, you
mowed
mean,
out part.
you mean the other? you
So
mean
that
this-
mowed area
This
is.
parcel
yeah,
right here?
okay.
Yeah, that's the.
Doesn't, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and you said it's a rough drawing, so who knows what
So,
their end
no,
is
I mean,
for
they wouldn't touch.
Okay.
No. It's the total parcel is too wide. It would abut their White Buffalo property though.
Okay.
So there, again, maybe some opportunities for us to partner with the park district there.
Yeah.
Again, the courtyard concept is kind of cool, right? Like being able to share a park and being able to share, parking lot or possibly or something like that.
Would it be helpful to kind of prioritize what we're thinking in terms of options? Like, I don't know how to say, like, I think we've all agreed the mobile option is we're not in favor of, right?
We're gonna put one in Bill's backyard as a tea shed.
See how it fares for the.
The annex.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I guess like it seems
like
to be like, is like,
land and
right, is
then
everyone in
addition and
agreement that like pursuing and seeing if the land is an option?
Yeah. Right, and
Would
then
be our
if-
first course of
Because then
action,
it,
and then from
it
there we can.
informs all of our other
Right,
decisions.
Right,
from
because
there.
then that's, it's like a cascading effect, like
Yes,
if we
I agree.
can get the land,
right,
we have many options that we could be putting on the table
Or
and
if we,
discussing, but
or if we
if
don't, then
we
we have,
can't, then we
we
have
have
to
to really
like,
consider these other
Yeah,
options.
that's
that
what I'm
we-
trying to
yeah,
get at,
yep.
right.
we might be back to the mobile
Fair.
classrooms.
Right, we just don't know.
I hope.
Yeah,
They're not going to.
So I guess, I mean, so is it fair, is anyone in, I don't want to put people on the spot, but I mean, is it fair to say that everyone agrees with that approach?
Yes.
Like,
Sounds like
what I
that's
was
a
trying
good
to get at.
explore the
discovery
land
part of it.
opportunity.
One,
You
number
kind of have to
two.
do step one before step
Yeah.
two.
Mhm.
I agree, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I also think having conversations with the park district to try to understand where they
Yeah.
stand in this, I mean.
Right, that's true too.
Yeah.
So that's gonna.
And also the village, because if we're trying to solve the issue of the traffic flow, right, and it's still gonna go through, like, potentially have issues, I feel like we discussed this previously about this exact street.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think how we
from
were looking
different
at Howard, but yeah,
Yeah.
similar.
But yes, agree. I mean, we have to check all the boxes, yeah.
Of course. Of course. Awesome, thanks guys.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have to agree though that no, we don't. I was
Not
gonna
yet.
say like, okay,
Which option?
which parcel of land?
Oh.
We can get to that later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your work to pull all those together. I know it was like a big,
It's a team effort.
thank you all people involved to make all those options. Yeah.
It's late. Yeah, for the next agenda. Okay, item 7 is items for the next agenda, which includes facility update, establish petty cash fund, summer academy update, hiring status report, declassify executive session minutes, class size update, review personnel section 5 board policies, approval for overnight student trips, and tentative budget.
And this will be in
August
Is it a week
13th.
earlier, right, the meeting?
Yeah,
It's
because we
always
have to
earlier.
let the budget sit for 30 days.
Yep,
And
okay.
so
Just wanted to make sure.
there wasn't 30 days
Attention
between the
to that.
3rd,
Guys want
Wednesday
to
in
get
August.
July,
and the
just
first
cause.
Okay, any comments on the
No, I think.
items?
I don't
Okay,
have
perfect. We're in the item 8, open forum. See a green form?
Can I do that off of that? Sure. Is that okay? Well, first of all, so I've been here a long time, and so 20 years ago, it's interesting because option number 3 was what we were told from the school board. There was a referendum that was passed, and then they built on to the elementary school. And their plans were to, that the next time that they would have to add on would be your option 3, right? So I don't know who was on the school board at that time, but I do know Tom Arrow was a part of it, so maybe that's somebody that you can reach out to. So that's number 1. Number 2, after hearing Jen Van's testing reports, math is super high and reading has room for improvement. My question to you is, to the school board, how many math programs have you used in the last 5 years? Bridges is awesome. Jen Van brought it in. I guess the question to you would be, how many reading programs have you had in the last 5 years? So I think, math scores are great. You've had 1. I think reading has been changed quite often. I don't think changing reading programs could be the reason why your reading scores are not as good as your math scores. So that really, because Jen gave a ton of data. But really, the basic question is, how often are you changing the reading programs? So I hope you'll answer that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we're going to move into closed session. We need a motion for the Board of Education to go into closed session for the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Vaca?
Yes.
Mrs. Lenzen?
Yes.
Mr. Nash?
Yes.
Mrs. Walters?
Yes.
Mr. Zona?
Yes.
Mr. Mason?
Yes.
Mrs. Marchiano?
Yes.
All right.
Do you want to?